Good evening. I call the May 3rd, 2021 meeting of the Pickens County Council to order. I want to thank everyone for being here with us tonight to do the business of the county. I appreciate you showing interest and coming out. Ask that everyone remains respectful and civil as we make our way through the agenda tonight. This time I'm going to actually lead the invocation, and then I'm going to ask veteran George Peterson to lead us in the pledge. Let's pray. Our dear Lord and gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to come here tonight to do the business of the county. God, we just ask you that you be with us, that you will give us wisdom and discernment as we move through this agenda, Lord. We thank you for all that you have done and all that you're going to do. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
You know what?
Just stand up here. We'll get it later. Take another step back. Step up here.
Let me just hold this for me. You stand right there.
Yeah. What do I do with this one?
Gonna say the Pledge of Allegiance
Pledge of
now.
Allegiance.
Oh,
I'll hold it for you.
I'll say that. I got the Pledge of Allegiance.
He's ready. Go for it.
Okay. Now I say,
Yes, sir.
Now.
I pledge
America.
and
Thank
Me,
you, Mr.
I'm
Peterson.
Very good.
I'm in the
Mr. George Philip Peterson was born 13th of May, 1921 at West Point, New York. He entered the United States Army at Newburgh, New York on 19th of August of 1942. He was assigned to the 118th Infantry and received his basic training at Fort Jackson in Columbia, South Carolina with the Palmetto Regiment. He then served the company's F-405th Infantry during World War II. Private First Class Peterson received the Good Conduct Medal, Expert Infantryman Badge, European, African, Middle Eastern Campaign Ribbon, and an M1 Rifle Badge, and an honorable discharge on 17th of March, 1945. On the 12th of January, 1948, Private First Class Peterson decided to re-enter military service in the United States Air Force. He served honorably in the U.S. Air Force and retired the 31st of October, 1964. Tech Sergeant Peterson received the Good Conduct Medal with 1 Silver Loop, Korean Service Medal, United Nations Service Medal, the National Defense Medal, A-60 Headquarters 29th Air Division Air Force Longevity Service Award with 3 bronze oak leaf clusters, ADC Commendation Award, Small Arms Expert Marksmanship Ribbon with Combat Infantry Badge. World War II and Korean Air veteran George Philip Peterson served his country honorably from the 19th of August of 42 to the 31st October 1964, and today we show him our sincere appreciation. Thank you for your service. I want to say
rather surprised that picture, because that's mine.
on the 13th of this month, Mr. Peterson will celebrate his 100th
He's
birthday.
20 years older than I am. I'm 79. I've been 99 years old.
May 3rd to 21, that's right. You know, yesterday was Brian's birthday. Okay.
Excuse me, I just want to get a picture.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, how about that?
Dad, stand up straight.
Want this uncovered?
No, you're supposed to wear them in here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's Brian's sister.
All right, we're gonna do one more, okay? Oh, okay. Here,
Want this down? or-
no, you have to wear them now. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all, appreciate it. It's quite an honor to do this for him.
Thank you for doing it.
Turn around and sit down there.
You gonna put that sit there?
You can sit there.
Oh. Yeah. When you get to be 100.
You're looking great for 100, let me tell you. Doing something right.
I don't turn 100 for another 2 weeks.
All right.
10 days. Pick up
Love
your
it.
feet. Pick up your feet.
All right. At this time, we now hold our public forum. This is a time for the public to give us feedback on the issues that they deem important. Madam Clerk, please call the first speaker.
Mr. Chairman and members of council, I call
Members of the council, ladies and gentlemen, following are excerpts from the book Dark Agenda by David Horowitz, a former 60s radical turned conservative who came to his senses. Brigadier General E. John Teichert commands 412th Test Wing, Edwards Air Force Base, California. He is under attack because he maintains a personal, not official website called Prayer at Lunchtime for the United States. Michael Weinstein, founder of the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, claims the General's Prayer website is unconstitutional. Weinstein describes General Teichert as a fundamentalist Christian tyrant and religious extremist, predator, quote unquote, who promotes a, quote, weaponized version of Christianity, unquote. As a result of Weinstein's efforts during the Obama administration, religious expression in the military became a criminal offense. Today, from the military, beginning at the top down, an op-ed Weinstein wrote for the Huffington Post illustrates his ignorant extremism. Quote, I founded the civil rights fighting organization, the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, to do one thing: fight those monsters who would tear down the constitutionally mandated wall separating church and state in the technologically most lethal entity ever created by humankind, the U.S. military. He went on, quote, evil fundamentalist Christian creatures and their spiritual heirs have taken refuge behind flimsy, well-worn, gauze-like euphemistic facades such as family values and religious liberty. Weinstein concluded with a warning that his readers need to speak out against the fundamentalist Christian monsters of human degradation, marginalization, humiliation, and tyranny, lest one day find themselves under a rapacious reign of theocratic terror, quote, unquote. The fact that the Obama Pentagon would even consult with this unhinged author, these are Horowitz words, of such rabid sentiments, let alone institutionalize such rabid sentiments and anti-religious attitudes, is an ominous indication of what the future may hold if radicals like Weinstein continue to have their day. A former CIA agent and whistleblower warns that the long-range plan of the Marxist BLM, defund the police, is to replace the police down to the local level with a national police force answering to the party in D.C.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. That's 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you, Council, for hearing me today. My name is Deb Mitchell. I am the curator of the Mountain View Americana Art Show. It's kind of being dubbed as the little show that could. What started out as just a fundraiser to reopen the Dacusville Art Room and give free lessons has turned into a now national and international art show. We've got 289 pieces of art coming from around the country and Canada. As of right now, we've got 23 artists that are flying in or driving in from across the country. The show started out, like I say, as just a little fundraiser, and it has now turned huge, partly because I had some contacts in the Western art world, and I told them what I was wanting to do as far as reopening the art room, and they said, well, I'll send a piece, and pretty soon it has literally exploded. So the reason that I'm here is to take the show up a notch. I'm asking for something that's never been done at the Dacusville Community Center. I'm asking for alcohol to be permitted to be served at the 3 events. And the people that are going to be there are not going to be young people, partiers. These are all well-established people that are coming in to buy some very high-end art. So most of the time when these shows are done, it's wine and craft beer type of a thing. So we've got 3 receptions. There's an opening reception the Thursday before. There's a get-together the Friday night, and then a Saturday is the auction. All of these are opportunities for artists and collectors to meet and mingle. We put, excuse me, I've put a lot of work and time in this, a lot of contacts. I've even talked with Seth from the I'm sorry about that. With Seth from the Booth Museum in Georgia. And we just met last week. He said, I don't think that you realize what you've done here. He says, you've got a show that equivalates what's been taken 10 years to get done. So God laid it on my heart just to open the art center back up, to give free lessons. I had no clue that we were going to be blessed to this degree. And if you guys do decide to let me do this, I know that we have to have liability insurance. I know we have to have security. We've already hired on Pickens County to be our security guards for in the evening. I just believe that to be able to have wine there and possibly craft beer would just give it a level of elegance and sophistication that you just can't get with Coca-Cola. You just can't. So that's what I'm here to ask for. That's it. Thank you.
Susan Robinette.
I'm Susan Robinette from Clemson. I'm here to ask for your help in fixing a problem we residents of Pickens County all share. Although we have an animal control ordinance, animals here continue to suffer starvation, chaining, cruelty, neglect, and abandonment. The ordinance needs to be strengthened with the addition of specific fines and penalties for violations, and then it needs to be enforced. For your information, the past 2 weeks alone, there have been 2 major violations of your ordinance. A teenager walking his leash dog was attacked by a pit bull. His dog was injured. The teenager was afraid to press charges, and the dog is still free to attack others. The next time, it could be a child. 6 dogs were found at the point of starvation. This violation was reported to Animal Control in 2020. Yet these poor dogs were forced to suffer for another whole year before something was done. The ordinance seems rather useless in light of the abuse taking place. I know you're not the enforcers, but you do control and write the ordinance and can add some teeth to it in order to make it stronger and more enforceable. You just can't wash your hands of this because enforcement isn't your area of concern. You live here too. If abusers can count on being fined, penalized, and/or lose their animals, they will change their behavior. We no longer live in the dark ages. Please help us in our fight to see this problem corrected. The continuing abuse of animals in Pickens County also negatively affects our reputation, in contrast to neighboring counties, whose citizens and councils have worked very hard to correct their abuse issues. Their ordinances are all much stronger than ours. As your 3 minutes time limit will not allow me to announce them now, I have listed below suggested fines that could easily be added to your ordinance and which we feel would make it stronger and more enforceable. Fine amounts can be documented and given to the Pickens County Animal Shelter to help better the condition of the animals in their care. I refer you to South Carolina State Animal Cruelty Code 47-1-40, which states that violations shall be considered misdemeanors with a penalty of up to 30 days in jail or up to a fine of up to $500. So things could get a lot tougher for abusers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Elaine Masseri.
Elaine Masseri, I'm back. The problem, lack of enforcement of the animal abuse ordinances. For those of you who didn't write these ordinances, this is your opportunity to correct them so they can be enforced. One of the main reasons that cases fall apart in court is that they lack specificity. Example, 4-5, abandonment. It does not address how many days an animal has to be left alone before it is considered to be abandoned. This also applies to 4-7, animal care. This is a legal loophole that can easily be argued in court. Put a time limit on it, 2 days. Example, 4-10, owning or keeping a vicious animal. Item H contains 2 sentences. The second states, if the owner, a hunting dog owner, determines that the animal is a vicious animal, it shall be the responsibility of the owner to restrain said animal when the animal is not in the act of hunting. The end. The assumption is that the vicious hunting dog can be released while hunting. If this is not the intent, where does the responsibility lie if that dog attacks another hunter or hunting dog? If that is not the intent, then rewrite it. 4-9C. Example, this ordinance states that an animal that attacks a person or another animal can be put down, shot. Unless you're a marksman, there's a 50-50 chance you'll hit the victim when a vicious animal is on top of the victim, which is usually the case. Strengthen the laws which, with more specifics, make the first offense more than a slap on the hand, so that residents are not put into these risky situations. Be proactive instead of reactive. How many times in the past 4 years has someone been physically arrested for animal abuse? That's a question I have for you and law enforcement. I don't have the answer, probably because there haven't been many times. If you care about the laws you write, even if you don't enforce them, then you should care if anyone does enforce them. Otherwise, it's an exercise in futility and a waste of taxpayer money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Margaret Thompson.
Good evening. When we opened up Clemson Paw Partners in Central, that you so graciously leased us a building, one of the quotes on one of our walls is going, "We choose to do what's hard, not what's easy." Quoted John F. Kennedy. I love that quote. That's what we do. We work hard. We don't try to do things easy. All right, the clinic, we're almost done with phase 1, which is the renovation. We have started a little bit on phase 2, moving in equipment. Equipment is expensive. Autoclave, $4,000. Surgical table, $2,200. Anesthesia machine, $1,500. I'll probably write a check this week for $60,000. And we have paid for all of it with people donating, not government, not grants, and not borrowing from you guys. Thank you. This last week, 6 dogs, pictures were sent to me. They looked like they were starving. This same person that reported them last January 2020. It was reported to animal control. So between January 20 and this year, where they checked on, I don't have a clue. That's up to the sheriff's office. So they were seized. Now, what should have happened, according to another animal enforcement officer I talked to in Anderson County, these people should have been charged. Not the dogs say, well, give me the dogs, everything's fine. Because what happens, that releases that owner of that responsibility. Well, who pays the bill? We do. Clemson Paw Partners and other rescues. I'm tired of it. They need to start slapping these people and putting them in jail and putting fines on them because the money rolls down to us. And the only way that Pickens County is going to keep their no-kill status is they have to depend on rescues, because other than that, they'll be euthanized. So y'all need to get busy, please. Okay, I called the courts today. What are the fines? Let's say example, $100. Half of that goes to the state, half of it goes to the county. What do we get? Nothing, but we absorb the cost. The money, if they are charged with, if they just charge with a county court case, the money stays, it goes to the state. Now, this is my suggestion, and it's positive. We need to form a committee with citizens, shelter workers, animal control, and one of you fine gentlemen on that committee. Let's come up with solutions so we don't have to keep coming back here and saying, do something. I hope you take me seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sharon Baker.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sharon Baker. I'm new to this neighborhood. I'm from South Florida, and I've been doing TNR for the past 20 years. And in Florida, I probably spay and neutered over 200 cats, found homes for them. It's my passion to take care of these homeless animals. I came here, I went to the Pickens animal shelter and met Stacy Kelly, and I explained to him what I wanted to do. I live at the Cliffs, and I live near Durham's restaurant, lots of cats out there and kittens everywhere. And I said, sir, this is what I've been doing for the past 20 years. I'd like, to get some help. I'd like to start working here and spay and neutering cats. And he said to me, well, this is South Carolina, this ain't Florida. And as far as I'm concerned, there are nuisances and rodents, and you should take the cats and move back to Florida. So this was my first situation, or my first exposure to the animals, Pickens County Animal Shelter. I didn't give up. I probably spay and neutered about 30 so far, and I met some really wonderful people that are in this room that have helped me. Since then, I have been blackballed or red flagged by Stacy. I was told that I can no longer get vouchers and that I took advantage of the program, and that potentially he heard that I was trying to sell these cats for a profit through the rescue, which is absolutely false. I tried to explain to him that this is absolutely not true. He wouldn't listen to me. And then when I called the one vet that does the free spay and neutering, or use the vouchers, they told me that I am no longer allowed, me or anyone that knows me, that I'm not allowed to use the vouchers and use their veterinary services. So it's now been about 8 weeks that I have not spay and neutered any more cats, and I was working with a hoarder of cats in 6 Mile on Love and Care Road. He had 40 cats. We did about 25 or 30, and now they are just breeding like crazy. And it's really sad because I am willing to spend my time and money and energy to help these poor animals, but I was told by someone who's getting paid to take care of animals that these feral cats are nothing but nuisances and rodents, and I feel really sad, and I think that something should be done about that kind of an attitude. And I am willing to work hard and help people with these poor feral cats, but I need some intervention because what's going on right now is just not okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kat Mulkey.
Good evening, Council. First of all, I'd like to say I'm here on behalf of trying to convince the county to put the entire county on the same level playing field as most of our cities about Sunday alcohol sales and addressing, you really need to look at alcohol, beer, and wine at your county facilities. Prime examples of why it can and will work is I go back to Anderson County when they built their Civic Center. For the first 5 years, they would not allow beer and wine at that facility. After the director, Martin Durham, who initially opened the facility, left and went back to Las Vegas, says, I'm throwing my hands up. It took C.J. Cromer, who had booked his daughter's wedding there and had a price tag of $80,000, and the council there said, well, no, we're not going to allow champagne and beer and wine. He put his deposit and everything and took that to Greenville, South Carolina, rented Textile Hall. It was still Textile Hall at the time. We have been losing tourism money to Oconee County, Anderson County, and Greenville County for a long time. I urge you, for a prime example, this weekend I put on a very successful event for the first time ever with beer and wine in Pickens. Attendance of 4,500 people over 2 days, not 1 day, 2 days. Our VIP section, I was not prepared. I'm sorry if you were there and didn't get barbecue. We prepared for 400, and we had about 600 in there. So rookie mistake on my part. But who's going to benefit from this? The PAC Center. My cohort and friend Mark Thompson, the director of Walhalla Civic Center, is staying booked now that COVID's over. His lounge for members and guests is doing well. There have been no problems with alcohol abuse, and it's time that we look at it. We have programs that could come to Hagen Mill because the craft beer making and folks are wanting to learn. They're going to Greenville to take these classes, and that's another program, teaching tool that Hagen Mill could do. We really should put Pickens County, get us out of the 90s. Let's get to 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Jennifer Mall.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Mall, and me and my mother and father, Doug and Patsy Schumann, we run a local horse rescue just outside of 6 Mile called Rocky Ridge Equine Rescue. I myself have called animal control several times on a particular 5 horses that are down the street from me. It just happens to be a family member that owns these horses, but I do not care because you starve an animal and I see it, I'm going to call. I've been calling for a year. These horses are still there. They're still starving. And it's getting quite ridiculous. About a year and a half ago, one of those horses did lay down and die. It took 3 days for them to get out there and do something about that horse. And the only reason they did is because someone saw it, called us, because we are well known around here, and let us know. I got in contact with them and told them. If they were taking care of their horses properly, they would have known the same day that that horse died, or could have even maybe gotten the horse help. And so something needs to be done. And there's not a lot of outreach for horses, but this is horse country. And I just wanted to give you a breakdown of what it costs to rehabilitate one horse in 1 month. You've got $200 a week for grain and weight boosters, $50 a week for hay, $20 for wormer for a month. Vet costs are $60 for a farm call, $55 emergency fee, $130 for a blood panel to check on organ function, $135 for shots and Coggins, $100 for 10 days of antibiotics, $150 for a month of steroids, $50 for bute, which is pain management, $85 per horse for teeth floating, $25 to $80 a month for farrier costs, which is trimming the feet or shoes if necessary. And then if the horse can't be rehabilitated, which has happened to us, you're talking about $150 to $185 for euthanasia, $350 for burial. So that comes to $615 for one horse. We have taken in over 30. We have rehomed, retrained, rehabilitated 15. We currently have 12. And so what needs to happen is these people need to stop getting off. They need to be fined. They need to be put in jail. And don't tell me there's no room. You make room. Put them in there. Because them just getting off scot-free, they're going to continue to do it, and there's no repercussions, no consequences, nothing. So, and when they are put in jail or fined, restitution should be paid to the rescuers, the rehabbers, whoever takes on these animals and comes out of their pocket to make sure they survive or put down, due to medical reasons and there's no quality of life anymore. That money should be paid back to those people who took that on. I know we're rescuers and that's our life that we choose, but if I had my choice, these people would take care of their animals from day one and they would never have to suffer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Melanie Manley.
Good evening. I'm not from Pickens, but I worked for Blue Ridge Electric for 28 years, so I kind of sort of am. I run Kids and Cats Rescue, and we adopt out of PetSmart in Easley. And I kind of just have something positive to say. I'm not sure when it was implemented, but I do know that at some point they started giving out vouchers to residents to get their animals fixed, to get their cats fixed, their stray cats, their feral cats. And that has been huge, and I really want that to continue because people come up to me all the time at the adoption center. I have a cat, and that is a wonderful option to be able to give them. I have other resources. I try to help everybody that I can. If somebody has a hurt cat, a sick cat, I took in 3 puppies 2 weeks ago. Somebody came in with a laundry basket of puppies. But that has just been a really great program because now people who can't afford to even buy a voucher from other of these programs. I used to buy a bunch of vouchers from Speak for Animals for $10, and I would actually give them out at PetSmart to people who had stray cats or feral cats. People come up to me and they can't afford to feed. I network a lot, and so I give them food. I provide them with vet care for their animals that they normally couldn't have. But that voucher program has been really a great resource. And I hope that continues because that, people, if it's free, they'll do it most of the time, sometimes not. But I try to do, I'll transport, I got laid off back in March. So I probably have worked harder at this. I've always done rescue, but I've worked harder at this probably than I ever did at my job. So that's a wonderful resource to have is the voucher program. That's all. Thank you.
Ellen Smith.
I'm Alan Quinn, and I want to speak again about the lack of economic development in Pickens County. I wasn't allowed to respond to Councilman Whitehurst at the last meeting when he denigrated my message, so I will take my time to do that tonight. So he said, I don't want Greenville jobs in Pickens County. He said, Mr. Quinn, you want jobs, high-paying jobs. I don't mind having to go to work in Greenville County. I get to come home to this. This is what I want to come home to. So this is low-paying jobs, people from other areas moving in here in droves, no tax revenue from great companies, no career opportunities for our young people. Well, I too would like Pickens County to remain much like it was yesterday, as would many others. Well, it ain't going to happen. If you think it will, you're living in a cave. The area between Charlotte and Atlanta is going to explode in the next 20 years. Many of us here tonight may not be here to see it happen, but let me assure you it will. If proactive action is not taken, then the progressive left plan to push low-paying jobs and government housing into suburbs is going to happen here. It is called AFFH. Affirmatively Further and Fair Housing. This initiative was started by President Obama to drive diversity into the suburbs. It is actually a progressive left plan to give regional centers like Greenville and Anderson the pick of opportunities and letting them send what they don't want here. Well, then President Trump stopped AFFH in its tracks when he was president. But the Biden administration is reportedly going to bring it back on steroids. Growth is coming, and although we may be gone, our descendants won't be, and they will inherit what you do or don't do in the short term, and that's forever. The better paying companies invest more in this pay higher county taxes. So by recruiting them, you will be getting much more in taxes, and that can reduce the tax burden on our citizens here. At another meeting, when y'all were setting goals for 2021, Councilman Whitehurst stated, industrial employment does not matter. That's very short-sighted, and it's not true. I have a business degree, and every model I have seen says industry is the base of most local economics. Then better and more small businesses come in to support that industry. More employment
Thank you,
at
Mr.
better
Quinn.
pay
Thank
is
you, Mr.
called
Quinn.
quality of life.
Thank you, sir.
Donnell Raines. I'm here tonight to talk to you about how important property rights are and urge you as a council to sign the resolution COTU sent you to consider. We have started a petition online and live to show you how many of your constituents want you to pass this resolution. Our Bible is pro-private property rights. One can read many passages that indeed support that statement. Communist, Marxist, equity-believing Democrats, however, think there should be abolition of private property for the common good. Hence, we have a clear difference between capitalism and communism. God is the owner of all property, no doubt, not government. And God has created us humans as stewards, good stewards, with responsibilities to our property. You, council, were elected to make good decisions over protecting our individual God-given right to property. The 10th commandment is clear. You shall not covet your neighbor's house or even his donkey or anything that belongs to your neighbor. We, the people, want you to assure us by signing the private property rights resolution that there is indeed no smidgen of communist, Marxist, or equity-believing ideology that you have hidden in your heart. And let's not forget Deuteronomy 19:14, which states you shall not move your neighbor's boundary mark. Protection of our private property rights matter. Your signing our resolution is a huge step in reassuring us that with a Joe Biden in the White House, who has shown us clearly he is all on board with assaulting our property rights, that you indeed will have our best interest at heart when approving the soon-to-be debated comprehensive plan. No one here can deny the fact there is natural tendency of government to overreach. We want government to protect our God-given rights, not diminish them. When government goes unchecked, it will take from the people. That is ungodly and breaking the 10th commandment. Finally, we would appreciate it if you actually not just sign this resolution, but make it into an ordinance like you did with the Second Amendment sanctuary ordinance. You could name it Private Property Sanctuary County Ordinance. In summary, private property protection is what best serves the continuation of prosperity in our county. We don't want communism. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Raines. Thank you. Agenda item 3 tonight is the approval of minutes. You have before you April 5th regular meeting, April 13th special call meeting, and April 13th budget work session. Ask for a motion and a second. Motion by second by Councilman Feenstra. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor of accepting the minutes, please signify by raising your hand. That's unanimous. Item 4 on the agenda tonight is the administrator's report. Mr. Rucker. Is your mic on?
Thank you for that. Thank you. But appreciate the opportunity to present to you tonight. I'll start as I have with a COVID update. Seen some different numbers out there, but the one thing that we could talk about is that the COVID numbers in Pickens County are going down. According to DHEC, we're no longer a high incident rate. We're now a medium incident rate. We're still higher than, of course, we would like to be. So we want to encourage people to stay safe where they can. But we also would like to encourage people to get a vaccination. There's many different ways that you can get a vaccination, from own care providers, from some private businesses, from some like grocery store pharmacies, that sort of thing. A lot of options out there for you, but you also have the option of the Pickens County Emergency Services Vaccination Clinic, which is a cooperation between United Way, Pickens County Sheriff's Office, Prisma, our EMS, and our EMD folks. That's happening on Tuesdays and Thursdays at the Law Enforcement Center in their training room. Again, that's Tuesdays and Thursdays. We'd ask you to make an appointment if you could, but if you can't and you need to walk up, please check on the website for the times, and we will do what we can to accommodate you. We're also looking at perhaps making that clinic maybe go mobile for folks that don't want to necessarily go to that location, or it may be too far from them. So we want to encourage people to do that, seek out the vaccination where you can. Some stats we were able to put together today is that the number of residents in Pickens County that have actually gotten the vaccination, this is at least one shot, and this would be adults, 36% of those 15 and over. So we've got a pretty good number of vaccinated folks within Pickens County, but we want to encourage more people to do that. So I recommend that to you and to the public. Gentlemen, one thing I wanted to update you on, and this is based on feedback you all gave in one of our budget meetings a couple of weeks back. You talked about the work we've put into the capital improvement plan, and then you asked, legitimate questions about, well, what happens with that after y'all have approved it in the capital improvement plan? What happens? So I've given you a report that's really just a sample. You should have that at your desk, talking about the capital improvement plan. I'll give you just a color code here, and I intend to come back to you each month with this plan so you can follow along and see how we're doing in implementing the purchases that you all have authorized. Basically, on this chart, it's showing up as blue, but it should be green on the chart you have in front of you. Green means good, green means we've ordered it or it's already being put in service. So you can see those items there that are already ordered or in service. Yellow means, and it shows up probably as orange up there, but it should be yellow on yours, is that we're still in the bid process or there's been some procedural holdup in it now. So what I would recommend you do on those, gentlemen, is just continue to follow those as you evaluate how staff is doing in following your capital plan. And then red would be those items where something has happened and that's not going to happen this budget year. So we'll have to come back to you in the fall and talk to you about that. In this case, the only two things on the capital plan that are in red status are 2 culvert replacements that are something we would like to do, but we keep having emergency washouts that take priority. So we would like to replace those 2 culverts you see listed there. They're in our plan, but we need good weather because we keep having more emergency ones like the ones that I know on Old Dacusville Road, some of those others, Windmont, in Stonewall Creek, for example, that are unanticipated. Regardless, I want you to know that we're going to give you all this tool because you all have full-time jobs and busy lives, but we're going to give you this tool month to month for you to follow along and see how we're doing on capital purchases. Intend to do the same thing quarterly on revenues. It's something I talked with the finance director about as well. We think it would be helpful for you all if we updated you quarterly on how our revenues are doing. So that first report on revenues will come to you in June. But thank you for giving us that feedback. We want to give you the information you all need to make good decisions on behalf of the public. One quick update is starting today, we've gone to regular office hours at our Mile Creek Park. You'll know in years gone by, there were folks in the office at Mile Creek Park, but there weren't any really regular office hours where you knew there would be somebody there. And that became worse when 2 things happened. One is when we went to an online reservation system, it became less necessary day to day to have someone in the park. And the second one was in the office. And the second one was when COVID started. We obviously closed the office. So wanted to let you know that we're going with dedicated office hours Monday through Friday, 9 to 10 a.m., 2 to 4 p.m. So folks in the park can come and register anything that might be happening, or come and ask questions, or come and ask for guidance for the area. And we're gonna test this and see how it goes, and hopefully have more offerings in our park office. We would like for it to develop over time. I wanted to let you know that. A couple of updates. You'll remember last fall we had a marketing plan that was done for us by the South Carolina National Heritage Corridor. One of the frustrations that you may see from time to time in government is people can do a study, people can do a plan, and then they put it on a shelf and they don't implement it. So we've gone to great lengths to try not to fall into that, that trap, and instead stay on this plan month after month as we talk as a staff. So one of the first things we did was branding. Those were some things that we were able to do. But I wanted to let you know that the Grant Meadow Overlook, you may have seen some media coverage this past week of the Grant Meadow being conserved, placed in a conservation easement for perpetuity. The overlook that was recommended to us in the marketing plan and that we've engineered and designed has been put out to bid. That bid has come back. I can tell you that it's fully paid for under the funds that are available for us, the small matching amount we have, the PARD state funds, and the CTC commitment. And so we'll be looking to have a ground, I've signed the notice to proceed to the successful bidder, and we'll be looking to have a groundbreaking coming up here in a couple of weeks. The only thing we're really waiting on to schedule that is for SCDOT to return the permit to us. So we're excited about that. We think that that feature, that most photographed natural feature in the state of South Carolina, that the county is going to provide people a safe and dedicated space to take that photograph and to pull over and enjoy the view for that conserved, wonderful part of Pickens County in our skyline. So that's coming up, and we'll hope to have that online this summer. Kind of the next step is something that you have set for first reading, gentlemen, tonight. It's first reading in title only. It was also recommended in the marketing plan. If any of you have been to Long Shoals Roadside Park on Highway 11, just imagine that you come into Pickens County on Highway 11. On your right, a mile or two up, is going to be Long Shoals Roadside Park. The top pictures show you some of the conditions that were there previously over the last few months. It's managed by forestry. They don't have a lot of resources they commit to it because they have a lot of these locations they have to manage, they tell us. Because of that, during the summer, particularly when use is high, Long Shoals Roadside Park, the first thing you see with a brown sign coming into Pickens County on the right, does not look good. Does not look good. And so one of the recommendations from the branding committee was, Pickens County, this is your brand whether you like it or not. And so we've looked at it. You all had some foresight, added us a staff position in the budget last year. So we're recommending and have negotiated a proposed lease with the Forestry Commission where we take over day-to-day responsibility at the Long Shoals Roadside Park. So two things for tonight's agenda. One is first reading in title only of that proposed lease. The second one would be to send our overriding parks plan to committee so that our staff can describe to you just in how we intend to take care of this park and our other parks.
Ken, what is that in the top middle photograph?
I'm sorry?
In the top middle photograph, what is that?
That is the walkway when we first went to look at the condition.
What do you mean walkway?
There's a walkway, you get off, you walk into, it's a gravel parking lot, and you have to go down to the shoals, which you can see here. There's a wooden walkway that forestry had built and maintained, and there were huge holes in it. So one of the things that, they prepared some of these at our suggestion. One of the things that we've done, and I saw Tommy Webster here, talked to Tommy Webster about as well, is us making that more accessible, safer, more attractive, and it's something we could do.
That's stairs down to the...
That's right.
Right.
But it's set to go to committee of whole tonight for you all to receive more information from staff, but I just wanted to let you know what we were thinking. Grand Overlook was the first one. Long Shoals will be the second recommendation we're coming back to you with. And then I don't know that it's the third, but it's certainly one that I want to keep talking about, and that's Fort Prince George. You'll notice the model out in the lobby. One of the recommendations from the marketing study was that we utilize Fort Prince George and potentially put that at Mile Creek Park. I see Emily DeRoberts here with Duke. I know that Duke has some limitations that are placed on them by FERC, but since she's back there, I should point out that she's present and use this opportunity to pitch to Emily. But regardless, we do know that Mile Creek Park has certain things that recommend it as the location. We have been looking at it as a staff to see if we thought there was baseline kind of feasibility to do it. Part of that has involved our building folks experimenting with some materials. So we've been trying to see if it's something we can do in-house. The other thing that's going to involve is a week from Friday, myself, Mr. Webster, our parks folks, Allison Fowler, and a couple other members of staff are actually traveling to the sister fort up at Fort Loudon. That'll take us a couple hours to get up there. We're going to meet with the staff up at Fort Loudon and see about their construction, their operation. Again, we're just looking at baseline feasibility. Is this something that we could develop a plan to bring to y'all? But I wanted to let you know that we were continuing to work on that and take that seriously. Gentlemen, that's the end of the prepared report I have tonight, in case, unless you have other questions.
Mr. Chairman, oh, you want to go?
Go ahead.
Could you recount the schedule for the comprehensive plan and who's actually creating it?
Yeah, so the comprehensive plan is being developed through the auspices of our Community Development Office. The Planning Commission will have to review that plan and then make recommendations to this body. Some of you have actually been on the Planning Commission when that was done in the past. But we anticipate that that'll be going to the Planning Commission this summer, and would hope that you all would be receiving at least pieces of that plan for approval in the fall.
What about ACOG? When is it going to be finished up on that Highway 11 study?
I asked for an update on that for this month from ACOG, but I would expect that that would also come to you. That'll come more directly to you because we ordered that directly, and that should be this summer as well.
Okay, one more question. I'd like to talk to Chris Brink about some of this stuff and then give him a call.
Sure.
Mr. Roper, during public forum, Ms. Baker had made some pretty disparaging remarks about an experience that she was having at the animal shelter. We don't get into the day-to-day operations nor tell you what to do and how to do all that, but we do hold you accountable.
Sure.
So I would like to ask for an update on what happened and how we can become more useful to the public.
Yeah, Mr. Vice Chair, I'll tell you that I took some extensive notes during that public forum, specifically about that complaint, which we will investigate and follow up, report back to council on that. I would take the opportunity just to talk about some data I have from April. Our animal shelter took in 89 animals. We had a 96% save rate in April. That was 16 adoptions, adoptions out to citizens. We had 46 animals that went to rescue partners. So one part of what she said is absolutely true. Rescue partners are integral to what we're able to do because we're able to move them out. We had 27 animals returned back to their owners. And then to the one lady who I think has already left, we had community cat vouchers. That's where we basically issue a voucher for someone to go and get their cat spayed or neutered. We had 47 of those issued and 37 were redeemed. So that program, which is really more of a pilot program we do just when the budget will allow us, has been successful. So we have good things to recommend from that facility and from the leadership at that facility. But I will follow up on that complaint.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Waters?
Back to the comments made, we're seeing a recurring theme, it seems to me, that people aren't being ticketed, aren't being arrested, and it's not just animals. And I'm kind of, we pass an ordinance, and if they don't even bother to issue a citation, when they've obviously broken the ordinance, what are our options? You make a tougher ordinance, it doesn't change if they don't issue a citation to start with.
Right. To directly answer your question, our options are very limited. We are the legislative, you all gentlemen are the legislative branch of our county government, not the executive branch. The sheriff's office is the executive branch, so it falls to them, and the sheriff's directly accountable to the voters, much in the way you gentlemen are.
Can we request from him a list of citations he's given out for animal control?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I will tell you, and again, I don't want to just always counteract bad news with good, but I want you to have a full picture. One thing that I was proud of Chris Brink that he came up, our community development director, came up with on his own, was a couple days ago, last week, he had a codes day. He dedicated a day to having the attorney come in, the airport director, the fire marshal, all the different parts of county government come in and meet with his staff and figure out where the breaks in the armor were. And I will tell you that Pickens County Sheriff's Office participated in that as well. So we're waiting to see the recommendations that come back from Chris on that. But it's something that we're concerned about too. We have litter codes, building codes, property upkeep codes. We have all of those types of codes. And we need to make sure that it all work the way that you all intend.
Mr. Chairman, I want to respond to that. I read the ordinance twice, the animal ordinance. I think it does need to define what vicious animals are. Elaine, I think, made that point. I think you could probably expand on the animal care section, but it's a very thorough ordinance. It lays out illegal action very clearly, and I'm just going to read some of them. It's illegal to have your dog run off your property, to just menace passersby or even chase cars. That's illegal. To bark and whine in a habitual manner. It's illegal. You got to give your dog and animals, all animals, food, water, shelter, humane care. They have to have a rabies shot. They have to wear a tag. It's illegal for your animal to damage other people's property. There's an entire section on vicious animals. In any case of any violation, animal control can immediately impound the animal. And then the penalties for each violation are up to $500 and up to 30 days in jail. So if there's a violation for 6 days, the judge could hand out a $3,000 fine and put the person in jail for 180 days. The issue is there's three pieces in the legal process. You've got the ordinance, which is Section 4, written by the County Council. Then you've got enforcement of Section 4, which is by animal control, which is part of the Sheriff's Department. And then you have convictions and punishment that's dished out by the solicitor and the judicial and the magistrate. They read the ordinance. I wish they wouldn't have left. They read the ordinance. But what I would suggest that they do is examine the enforcement of the ordinance. And I would ask animal control for the number of tickets that they've written, the warrants that they've issued, and the number of animals that they impounded because of violations in the ordinance. That would give you a good sense of the enforcement. Then I would go to the solicitor's office and the magistrate's office and ask for the convictions on those cases and the penalties they dished out. And then I would do an evaluation. What is the weakest link? Is it the legislative branch writing the rules? Is it the executive branch that's actually, enforcing it? Or is it the judicial branch, which is actually handing out the punishments and the convictions? That's the way I would assess it. We could give minimum sentencing, but juries and courts, judges give sentences in this country. They do. They hear the testimony. They know the facts. They question people. For me to write an ordinance today, anticipating what's going to happen, what the witnesses are going to say, what the facts are going to be, and dish out a punishment from here, just doesn't make any sense to me. It actually runs contrary to the idea of three branches of government and checks and balances. But I do want to say one thing. I want to credit you guys. The first thing I did when I got here was I did an assessment of what the old council spent their money on. And I combed through the audits. I went through every page for years. And to see what their priorities were. You know what the top tier spending was the last 5 years? Sheriff's Department, Public Defender, Parks Department, Fire, and Animals. Built a new shelter for $135,000. That's not included in those numbers that I gave you. That's just operational. You're working with Clemson Poor Partners for a spay and neuter program. They asked you, you did it. This ordinance was written by this council, which I think is pretty thorough. So the rest of the story is that I think they, by and large, did a good job in the ordinance, and I think they did a very good job in actually, funding this effort. You know what was near the bottom of the list? EMS. The guys with the ambulance taking people to hospitals, those kind of things. So we have to watch that we really don't lose our eye about what's important, because maybe people speak up. Some of the people that really need the money, sometimes they don't speak up. That's my whole point.
Thank you, Mr. Stater. Ms. Nations, I wanted to confirm, this is on the committee log, the animal.
And it was too late.
Okay, perfect. That's right to know. Thank you.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Sater was recommending that the folks that are curious about this particular situation evaluate all the facts. Is there a way that we could request a report with respects to the animal control arrest, ticketing, and convictions? Can we get that data together? Because I think that makes the holistic point that just because we're the only group that has meetings doesn't mean we're the only people that should be accountable to the public in front of the public.
Mr. Rucker, I believe Mr. Whitehurst Bonner stood correct. He wanted that. Mr. Wilson's made it clear what we want. Is that something you can handle for us? All the way to the solicitor?
Every wicket.
Yeah, expansion
Absolutely,
of what I
gentlemen.
said.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Anything else from Mr. Roper? Mr. Roper, I just want to ask, just for pure point, coming off budget meetings, I was looking at this that you gave us The 3 fire trucks that we're gonna roll over, are they on this list?
Those are included in the yellow portion. We're moving forward with those, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
You mean moving forward with them like this year, during
Yes,
this,
sir.
this cycle?
Yes, sir.
so going back up the plan on that.
That's right.
All right.
No, when you all give direction, I listen.
All right.
I used to tell my mama that, didn't mean it.
Anything else, Mr. Rucker? All right, item number 5, committee reports. So Committee of the Whole met April 19th. Went over council rules, log number 161. Councilman Trey Whitehurst made a motion to remove section 3.5 of the council organization rules and replace with section 2.2E. Motion was seconded by Councilman Alex Seda and carried unanimously. No second is required because this comes as a recommendation from the committee. I ask for all those in favor. First off, if there's any discussion over this.
I would like to discuss it, Mr. Chairman. This is one of the first things I noticed when I got on the council. County council has rules, just like the U.S. Congress has rules and the state legislature has rules on how they conduct their business. And section 3.5 of the rule book states that the council shall not participate or attempt to influence day-to-day operations and activities of the county. That mirrors the law, which is 49-660, which specifically says councilmen cannot give orders or instruction to employees. Only the county administrator can give orders or instruction to employees. But years before these guys were here, somebody interpreted that state law to mean that, misinterpreted the law, that, and they put it into the rule book, that council members were not to talk to employees. That goes way beyond the state law and probably beyond the First Amendment as well. So we're going to take out that part that says they can't communicate, that councilmen cannot communicate with employees, which I think which makes sense. We have to be able to communicate and ask them questions if we have questions.
Well, and to your point, I believe there was actually a lot of debate and discussion. I interpreted it one way, you interpreted it another way, and what we've done is we've cleared it up to where it's clear and everybody's on the same page. I think that bringing up that intent and purpose was important. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That's unanimous. Log number 135, discuss policy behind reserving the county property. There was no action taken by the committee. The committee did ask for the staff to bring back a proposal to council on this policy. You all should have received that. I believe there's a printed copy, and I know there was an email copy. Like I said, there was no action taken on that, and we can address that during motion period new business if someone would like to. Log number 172, budget work session. No action was taken by the committee. We did discuss the recreation funding request applications. There were a few amendments made to the committee recommendations. We did determine once all districts or once the committee felt like moving out of committee at that time, those amendments would all be announced at once. That was the end of the committee of the whole report. Next item is Solid Waste Ad Hoc Committee on April 13th. Chairman of the committee, Councilman Wilson, do you have an update there? Would you like me just to go off what I have here?
I don't have a complete update, but if there's discussion.
So I have that Councilman Whitehurst made a motion to move forward to approve moving allocation funds from fund balance to purchase 1 tractor and 1 trailer for solid waste. The motion was seconded by Councilman Alex Seda, and it carried with the 3 of y'all. Would you like to give us an update on that, based on that?
I would. So what we basically discussed at these meetings was the idea that we have short-term needs for folks having to wait in line. They're having issues with capacity at the different stations, et cetera. And so we specifically talked with the staff about ways that we can kind of have a direct impact immediately, but that the impact would be a sustaining impact over a prolonged period of time. So in other words, what can we do today to triage the problems and that will also have a carry-on effect as we start having discussions about long-term? From this particular recommendation to the council, we set aside the opportunity to talk long-term over a more protracted period where we as a group would be able to sort of map out the milestones associated with achieving a longer-term goal for solid waste in the county, and the subsequent costs, the engineering type activities, the permitting, et cetera, that would take us to a prolonged element. thinking, long-term takes longer, long-term is going to be more expensive, long-term has a lot more knobs to turn, so we want to be able to come back to the council with a one-page sort of mile plan with some options associated with it. On the short term, there were some elements associated with what the staff had proposed, like the shredder, sort area, trucks and trailers that just make immediate sense to the county for capacity, for honestly just to be lack of a better way to say it, more sustainable in the operations with regards to solid waste. And what rose to the top with regards to what we had already allocated in previous discussions was the idea that one more tractor and one more trailer for solid waste would have a direct capacity impact, near term. So that's where we made this consequent proposal here. Mr. Whitehurst was good enough to propose, and Mr. Seda seconded.
Thank you, and I guess the perfect time to do that being during new business, since it was not a.
It's on the.
Or is it during committee, because it didn't come out unanimous, so.
Yeah,
at this time I get a motion. That's right.
Wait, it did come out unanimous.
It came out.
All three of us.
A subcommittee, though, not a full committee.
Oh, I apologize.
Subcommittee.
Oh,
This
gotcha.
is, I'll be honest with you, I think this is the first time that I've dealt with a subcommittee.
So they would have to do a motion.
So you would have to make the motion.
So I make the motion that we add this to the agenda this evening if there's the exigent circumstance being that folks are having to wait.
Do it.
You don't have to add it to the
Yeah,
agenda, just
do
do
it.
it.
Nope, okay.
Make the motion to do it.
My motion here is that we follow Trey's from the committee and allocate funds to purchase the tractor and the solid waste trailer.
I'll second and I have a question.
Okay.
My question is this enough? I know what you're talking about, short-term versus long-term, and it's going to get us going the right path. Is this enough? And is this going to solve our problem with the guys that drive the truck and the CDL license and how much we're paying them versus neighboring counties, what we're paying them? Should that be included as a part of this recommendation?
I think this
I'm asking you a question. I don't know the answer to this.
Fair enough. So there's multiple elements to it all, right? This is the rise to the top piece of it. The shredder and the sort area, the projects there, the previous allocations seem to kind of get us moving on that. But for right now, today, there's a capacity issue with regards to ability to transport.
Right. No.
I think to answer
I'm
your
for
question.
it. I'm trying to figure out if that's enough.
I think to answer your question, we have another meeting coming up where we ask questions to research
Okay.
the shredder and some of those things, so that when we come back to something, we have a complete understanding of the justification if we're going to spend or not spend. And so this was something we saw that had to be addressed
Right
like
now.
yesterday.
Yeah.
But we're meeting again next Tuesday, I think.
Yes, sir.
We have another meeting where we've asked questions of staff to come back to us, and that's going to be involving the shredder and some of those other things about piggybacking and those things. And I think we'll probably next council have some sort of
That's right.
an idea from that. Does that kind of explain it?
That's right, because we're trying to get to the point where we firmly understand the issues, to the point that, we can give a 30-second elevator speech here in the council meeting, to kind of map things out. And we'd like to have a better understanding, just to represent it, back to the community as well. And there are significant long-term options, right, that have a lot of different things as far as moving parts. And when it comes down to me, is I don't really think that I could accurately and adequately represent a timeline, moving back from some future point where all the things impact. But the shredder, the sort area, the solid waste tractors, these things are the kind of things that we shouldn't wait on. They really have a direct impact and the opportunity to make it significantly easier for folks to go do their daily business in the community.
I love the fact that we're moving forward. The phone calls, the majority of the phone calls I'm getting now are specifically about this, and at least we're moving in the right direction. It's not necessarily a baby step, and the fact that you guys are going to meet again and figure that out.
So just to be as
not a baby step, but it's
huge.
It's a step.
So just to be as straightforward about it as I can, right? You get to, Mr. Seda and Mr. Whitehurst and I are fairly cognizant of the responsibility to spend the folks' money effectively. This is the kind of thing that just basically kind of jumps up as a no-brainer. We got to do something soon. So we'll I think personally I would like to withhold further sort of opinionation until we know more.
So, any other discussion over this motion?
I have a comment and then a question. Basically, we've got 5 problems up until, with trash. First one is the landfill is full. Okay. The hope was that MRR was going to have this private landfill. We were going to bring our trash to them. They tried to put coal ash in there. that just threw a monkey wrench into it. So now what we're doing is we're transporting our trash by trucks to Greenfield. So that's the first problem. We're trying to smooth that out. You hear about sort area, you hear about trailers and trucks. We're trying to smooth that problem. The second one that everybody seems to be talking about once in a while, if you go to the recycle center, these blue bins fill up, right? And you can't put your recyclables in them. You can't put your trash in. There's roll-off trucks that are moving all the time, picking up those bins and bringing them to the landfill. We need more of those trucks. That's the second problem. The third problem is enforcement at the recycle centers, and Trey mentioned that. There's a lot of illegal dumping that goes on, or some illegal dumping. Outside residents coming in and dumping in our landfill, commercial businesses dumping in our recycle centers that should go up to the landfill, things like that. The fourth thing is litter on the streets, and Councilman Costa had a plan to do that. We're going to talk about that later tonight. Litter on the streets, we got to get a plan for that. And then finally, getting the recyclables back to full sorting. In the past, you know, it was all plastics were all sorted down, and now they're all thrown into one because of COVID. So those are really the 5 goals that we're looking at in the long term. We're just trying to bite off the first one. So my question here is, on April 5th, we approved $120,000 for the sort area, $100,000 for the trailer. Tonight, we're going to approve another $200,000 for a tractor and $100,000 for a trailer. So that's $520,000 in total. That's going to give us a sort area, 2 tractor trailers, and two trailers and 1 tractor. One tractor. So what do we have now? Do we just have 1 tractor up there now? No, we have multiple tractors. Okay, so we're getting 1 and 2. So is that going to fix the problem with the loading that's going on with those tractor trailers that are taking that waste to Greenfield?
It's going to help to alleviate. Fix is something we're going to have to see. We're going to have to try it. So what we're doing now is we need to have more capacity there, Mr. Seda, and if we have more capacity, we think it'll trickle through the rest of the organization. So yes, we believe as a staff that this will have a greatly positive impact.
Okay, so my big issue is, you know, when we spoke to Mac, he was saying that we have typically 4 roll-off trucks on the road at any one time. We're using roads and bridges to supplement that. We probably need about 6. So do you feel that once we get this down pat up on the hill that we'll be able to move to the roll-off trucks and maybe?
We'll need, that'll probably be what we need to visit next. And I'll tell you one thing we're doing right now is our welding shop is repairing a whole bunch of roll-offs. So we're trying to get as many roll-off canisters, because an empty canister is your friend, whether it's at the MSW, at the C&D, or at the recycling center.
Yeah, it's not so much the bins though, it's the trucks.
Yeah, but we got to have bins. We got to have them. So that's something we're trying to address. We're trying to address everything we can before we come back, because another truck would help, but we would need another driver. Right now, we're supplementing that with roads and bridges guys. So it's not a simple solution, but this would be a huge step in the right direction.
Okay, I do want to, just for a point, you know, the whole process has changed. I want to make it clear that the process has changed. We were putting things in our landfill, and hopefully we're still putting bottle caps or something in our landfill occasionally, but we were putting things in our landfill till very recently. This is all new, and that's the reason for this subcommittee, and I appreciate your guys' hard work and diligence. Vice Chairman Costner, I know you have something you want to say or ask.
My only concern is that we are taking guys from another department to go and supplement this department. Mm-hmm. We've got to have a plan in place where we hire more people, that we're paying them enough to where the competitive wage is going to keep them there, offer them the incentives to stay there, because when one department comes in and does something, that makes that department suffer. So anything that Roads and Bridges had planned for whatever weeks that we go grab those people from, they can't do it.
It's absolutely true, and 2 points I would make on that. Number one, you are 100% right. It's not a long-term sustainable plan. Number 2, it has been our plan for a long time. We have supplemented solid waste operations with roads and bridges staff for time immemorial, trying to be a lean government, trying to be a conservative funded government. And we may have reached the limit of that. And to your point, we have to look at all those options.
Thank you. Any other discussion of it?
So what I would say about that particular element of it, to me, that's a midterm sort of issue that we probably need to discuss over time. Just looking at the incredible focus on road construction that needs to be done in this particular community from a funding perspective at the board level, and then just overall from the state level funding down, that diverting folks from the roads and bridges just doesn't seem to make sense to me from a strategic perspective, right? It just doesn't seem like a thing that can be sustainable long term. But I think that we need to know where we're going to go before we start trying to put things into place to get us there. And so for me to come back and start talking about the number of folks you have, because personnel is policy, and Mr. Sadis got the point, right? We know that personnel is policy, but let's figure out where we think we're going to go. The hiring portion of it and the pay portion of it, that's an ongoing discussion as part of other sections of what we're doing.
Absolutely. So on the motion at hand, which is buying a tractor and trailer, I call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All right, that passes unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. There was no other committee report. Item number 6 is council correspondence. The next committee of the whole meeting will be on Monday, May 17th at 6 p.m. in the main conference room of the administration building. I want to make note, non-essential county offices will be closed on Monday, May 31st, in observance for Memorial Day. The next county council meeting will be here on June 7th at 6:30 in the council chambers. Does anyone else have any correspondence that need to be announced? All right. Hearing none, item 7 on the agenda is motion period new business. Is there any motions or new business tonight? Vice Chairman Costa.
I'd like to make a motion that we do first reading and title only of ordinance 533 specific to, and then commit this to the committee of the whole, which is our animal ordinance. I agree with Councilman Seda that it has some teeth to it, but I think that we need to look at specifically the sections 4.5 through 4.9, and if there's a way to strengthen that. I also really like and I don't know if there's a way to do this as a part of the ordinance, but restitution to the rescuer. I had not heard that before, and I'd like us to be able to explore it. So this would just be a first reading and title only to begin the process of reviewing the animal ordinance to give it the teeth that it needs.
I hear a motion. Do I have
Second.
A second by Councilman Feenstra. Any discussion on adding this to the agenda tonight? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That is unanimous. All right, any other motion for new business?
So for new business, the county facility alcohol permit this is the place where we add that to the discussion. Okay, I'll make a motion that we add that to the discussion.
So would you like to add that as an item to the agenda tonight?
Right.
So I have a motion that we add alcohol in county facilities to the agenda tonight. Do I have a second? Second by Vice Chairman Costner.
What number will that be in the agenda?
We'll tag them on before the consent.
Okay.
So
16.1.
16.1, 16.2.
Okay, good.
All right, all those in favor of adding it to the agenda tonight, please signify by raising your hand. All right, that'd be 16.2. Any other motions or new business tonight?
Did you want to discuss this at all tonight?
We will, 16.2.
I want to just point of clarity here.
Yes, sir.
We took the sheriff's budget out of our overall budget discussion at a previous meeting, pending the sheriff bringing some just basic information to the table that we had requested and was denied. Can we make a motion tonight to add his budget back to the discussion?
That will be during the...
You could just add it to an amendment to the budget second reading, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, we can do it during the budget second reading tonight.
Okay, so do it, all right, fair enough.
All right. I want to make a motion that we add council rules, council communication to the committee log.
So you tell me to the consent agenda?
Yeah.
I'll second.
Second. Any discussion over that?
What's your purpose?
I just want to go over as things change and times change, technology changes, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. And I think the best way to do that is by having it in writing, if you will, in our rules. Okay, good. All right.
Good.
All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. And that carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Any other motion period or new business? All right, item number 8 on tonight's agenda is the Pickens County Pinnacle Performer of the Year Award. Mr. Roper, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you again. Thank you for the opportunity. One thing this council's talked about, both this council and the predecessor, is
wanting to build a culture in this organization that did it public. You all specifically, in your planning meeting back in early February, said that you wanted a culture here that was safe, accountable, magnetic, enjoyable, rewarding. There was an opportunity for advancement, and that it rewarded people for being fair and honest at work. You asked for a way that we could nurture our work. One of the ways that you established it in past capital is with the Pinnacle Performer Award. The Pinnacle Performer Award is a monthly award. It's a peer-nominated award. This award comes about because someone else in county government says that guy, that girl is doing it right. So we recognize one of those each month based upon nominations, and then we look at it as a staff. And then we have, out of the 12 winners, they each receive a $100 pay bonus. They receive a weekend mile free card. They receive a certificate. They receive some publicity. They receive some attaboys, things like that. And they're held up as an example of a pinnacle performer named after the highest mountain in South Carolina. So we really like that program. But then what happens at the end of the year is that we recognize the person who is the winner amongst those 12. And we've actually already put a face on the nominations, the written nominations that were made. And we're really excited tonight to recognize the person who we think typifies what we want in the county for you. That person is Dale Burke. Dale did not know that he was being here tonight for that purpose. So Dale's in the very back corner. Dale, if you would stand up. Congratulations to Dale Burke. But I want to read you a couple things. Congratulations to Dale Burke and Vehicle Maintenance on being named the Pickens County Pinnacle Performer of the Year. He came to work for Pickens County as a mechanic in 2001. He was promoted in 2016 to auto paint and body specialist position he holds today. I cannot tell you how much time we saved. And I'll say this in front of public works folks because they'll agree. If every time we had a fender bender out there, our fault, their fault, the pole's fault, we had to send our equipment to a shop and wait to get it fixed, how much we would have delays. But we don't have that because we have a deal with it. Okay, we don't have to do that. His commitment to his job as an accountant is impeccable, said Chief Kevin McLean of Emergency Services, who was actually the person that nominated. The job that Dale performs for the county saves the taxpayers thousands of dollars every year. Not only is Dale's skill above average, Dale, he said your skill was above average. But also, he has a great attitude. It shows a willingness to help others. Vehicle Maintenance Director Tony Chastain, Dale's supervisor, said he is one of those unique employees that all managers long to have. He said Dale shows up to work earlier than he's supposed to, and that he opens up the shop so that it's ready when the first person arrives of the day. You never hear a complaint or a negative comment from him. His work ethic and his attention to detail are second to none. He is in a position that is often overlooked, but without him, our fleet of vehicles would not look nearly as good as they do. He played a part in keeping all our vehicles in service for the county, whether it's installing all the decals on every sheriff's office vehicle, or repairing wrecked or damaged vehicles, or completely repainting a piece of equipment to make it look new and suitable to the public. He goes above and beyond to try to find the most cost-effective solution when performing the body and paint repairs on our fleet. We are glad to see Dale win the Pinnacle Award. It's well deserved. It was good to see him recognized just as a monthly winner. He is a truly asset to all of us. Gentlemen, as a part of this, there is an incentive 2% pay raise. We're rewarding him not only by giving him much not requested attention tonight, but also giving him the notoriety, and also it comes with a merit-based pay increase. So please join me in thanking Dale for our 2020.
Thank you. Thank you for your hard work and your dedication to the county and to the residents of Pickens County. Thank you. Item number 9 tonight is consideration of resolution 2021-09, supporting the Keep America Beautiful organization in Pickens County. and establishing a Keep Pickens County Beautiful Committee. I ask for a motion and a second to consider Resolution 2021-09.
Motion.
Second.
Vice Chairman Costner, Councilman Ainsley Feemster. I'm going to read this resolution supporting the Keep America Beautiful organization in Pickens County and establishing a Keep Pickens County Beautiful Committee. Whereas a clean environment contributes to the emotional, physical, and economic well-being of our citizens, and whereas litter is harmful to the environment, leaching chemicals into soil and water, endangering animal and aquatic habitats, and whereas cleaning up litter, graffiti, junk cars, and illegal dump sites deters criminal activity, and whereas litter prevention, education, and activities are vital to changing the behavior that causes litter, and whereas Pickens County has an existing beautification environmental advisory committee and has promoted education and activities related to the beautification and environmental concerns through various activities, including but not limited to the Traveling Trash Bash, and whereas Keep America Beautiful, Inc. is a leading national nonprofit organization which envisions a country where every community has clean, green, and beautiful place to live, and whereas KAB provides expertise and programs and resources to help people prevent litter, reduce waste, increase recycling, and protect the natural beauty of the areas around us, and whereas KAB and our Beautification Environmental Advisory Committee have common goals and could be more efficiently and effectively operated with our existing committee upgrading to a KAB affiliate, and whereas the affiliate program developed by KAB will assist greatly in educating our community about littering behavior, waste handling, and beautification, and thereby enhance community appearance and economic development. That is the resolution before us tonight. Is there any discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
We have amendment committees already.
Yes,
Is there
sir.
a way that we can combine or align this with another committee? Because we have a difficult time sourcing folks from the community to support the committees that we have, and then they often become a situation there where we can't keep folks, a plurality of the members, attending the different meetings. Is this another meeting another committee on top of the other committees, or is something that's kind of sustained already?
We see this as a combination and an outgrowth of the existing beautification committee, so we don't want it to be two committees, we want this to be one. And that's what we hope the resolution supports.
So rebranding.
That's right.
That's the simplest way to not only rebranding, but opening doors and giving a direction and vision of the current committee. Any other discussion? All those in favor of accepting this resolution, please signify by raising your hand. And that is unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 10, consideration of resolution 2021 to recognize Paul West for his years of service to the Pickens County Public Service Commission. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Feebster, second by Councilman Wilson. This is a resolution recognizing Paul West for his years of service to the Pickens County Public Service Commission. Paul West served as a member of the Pickens County Public Service Commission from May of 2006 until November of 2020. Mr. West served as the vice chairman from May of 2010 until November of 2020. And during his tenure on the Public Service Commission, many significant accomplishments occurred, including consolidation of wastewater treatment in Pickens County by closing of Liberty, Kramer, WWTP, Daniel WWTP, RC Edwards WWTP, and Central South WWTP, and expansion of Liberty, Roper WWTP. Construction of the new $1.8 million Katichi WWTP. Construction of the $3.6 million Central North WWTP. Construction of the sewer main line to service the new Chastain Road Elementary School and the Pickens County Career and Technology Center. Construction of the $1.8 million septic receiving station at the Upper Regional WWTP. And whereas Paul West's leadership and near perfect attendance at the Public Service Commission meeting allowed votes on these projects to go forward, leading to the county council's support for them and resulting in these projects coming into fruition. And where Mr. West was first appointed to the Public Service Commission in May, and because May 16th is the 22nd and National Public Works Week, it is timely that the county council chooses to recognize this public servant at this time. Any discussion over this resolution?
I just want to hear you say WWTP.
WWTP, wastewater treatment plants for those that
I
don't
got
know.
it.
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand, and that is unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. West is in the back there, and amongst all his other things, it wasn't really outlined in this resolution, but he also taught me art in high school. So, regardless, I want to thank him for his years. Finding people that will serve on the board like this.
Thank you, Mr. West, for your service to this county. Item number 11 on tonight's agenda is first reading in title only of an ordinance authorizing the execution and acceptance of a lease for Long Shoals Roadside Park. Do I have a motion and a second to constitute this as first reading? Motion by Councilman Wilson.
Second.
Second by Vice Chairman Costner. Any discussion?
This goes to committee, right? Yes, that's what I thought. It's a. That's just making sure.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 12 on the agenda, first reading entirely only of an ordinance to develop a jointly owned and operated industrial business park in conjunction with Oconee County. Such industrial business park to be geographically located in Oconee County and established pursuant to Section 4-1-170 of the Code of Laws of South Carolina, 1976, as amended, to provide for a written agreement with Oconee County to provide for the expenses of the park, the percentage of the revenue application, and the distribution of the fees in lieu of ad valorem taxation and other matters related thereto. Ask for a motion and a second to constitute first reading and title only of this ordinance.
Motion.
Vice Chairman Costner, do I have a second? By Councilman Fenster. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 13 on the agenda, public hearing and second reading of an ordinance number 598 to provide for adoption of a budget amendment containing estimated revenues and expenditure changes for Pickens County for the fiscal year beginning July 1st of 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021. Gavel is in the public hearing. Any comment at this time? Hearing none. Call closed public hearing. I ask for a motion and a second to constitute second reading of ordinance number 598.
Motion.
Motion by Vice Chairman Costner. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Wilson. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sadler.
My primary concern here is the way we vote on these amendments, these budget amendments. We voted to approve the first reading of the amended budget, and we were not given a copy of it or any numbers. The council basically voted for a blank sheet of paper. Tonight, when we got the board packet for this meeting, I looked in there for an amended budget, and there wasn't one. See it. I asked Megan for one, and they sent me something similar with some numbers on it. So it didn't seem like we were even going to get something for the second reading. The reason you have 3 readings for a budget is you put out your initial draft of the budget or a budget amendment, so the council and the public can actually see it. They can review the numbers. They can make suggestions. If there's a public hearing like now, they would actually have something to talk about. I don't know, it's a mystery. It's a mystery budget, so I don't know what they could talk about. Really. We hadn't gotten a copy until I asked for something, and it's not even really a budget or a summary of a budget. The second reading you get is you make some changes, and you put out a second revision, and there's comment, and there's councilmen who maybe make changes, or the public will make suggestions. And then finally, you have a third reading. It's a third revision of the budget or the amendment. And you actually debate it, make some changes, and you vote on it. So without putting out budget numbers until the last reading, in this case, you really kind of short-circuit that whole public process, in that debating process. So I don't expect full budgets on amendments, but I would like to see a one-page amended income statement. And it would look like the first column would be what you approved originally. So it would be your expenses, your revenues, your expenses, and your cash position. Second column would be your amended numbers, so the new revenue estimates. I'd love to know what the revenue estimates are for 11 months in. I mean, that should be in an amended budget. I don't know. We received it. Then you would see amended expenses and an amendment to the cash position, and you would see net changes. So what I'm asking for is, and I'm going to vote for this because I don't think there's anything going on here that's significant, it's a small change. But I'd like to see going forward, for every budget amendment, a one-pager that actually does that. And does those things. That's my only comment.
Thank you, Mr. Seda. Vice Chairman Costner.
I agree with Councilman Seda. I think that because we're talking about the past budget, and
Current budget.
Pardon me?
The one that we're in right now.
Yes, yeah, that's what I mean. Okay, yeah, it's the existing budget. And that was one of the things that we came up in our committee of the whole meeting is, what was the plan and where are we to the plan and what is our projected forecast to end? So I think that is important for us to, we do get that, but typically it's at the end. But I agree with Councilman Seda. I would like to see going forward at least a look at here's where you are and here's our forecast. And I think, Mr. Roper, you had alluded to the fact that you're going to start doing that on a quarterly basis.
That's great. So, Mr. Roper, I'm just going to ask these amount lines and various date comments on here to these two gentlemen's point. When will we find out what these amount lines are, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, so one thing that I think, in my experience, councils hate to hear is what I'm about to say.
Well, it can't be much worse than the council meeting June 30th is when insurance, property, and liability was approved with no money there beside it. It can't be much worse than there, because if we approve something, there should be something in that blank.
Well, I think that was, and Ralph can speak to that, but if I could let him come back to that, because I want to say the thing that none of you want to hear. We did it this way because this is the way we've done it. And also because the budget calendar set this schedule out. We certainly want to do it, though. Our only desire is to do it in a way that you gentlemen want. So, Vice Chairman, your point, Mr. Chairman, your point, Mr. Sada, your point, we absolutely want to give it to you in a fashion that the board wants. The only thing that I would say is just please don't impute any ill motives to us doing what we've traditionally done, and I don't believe that to be the case. But regardless, we do want to give you that information. Now, as for the lines down at the bottom of the budget amendment, Mr. Garino, if you could help me out here, there's some blanks down there that apply to grants and those sorts of things, if you could speak to those.
Yeah, because that's still changing. We get grants every day. We have qualifying events where people change insurance. So within each department, it could fluctuate, just like it has, I think, the council. We have 2 new council members come on board, and they have taken different insurance from the previous council members. And we're not allowed to transfer money from one department to another. So this really changes possibly all the way up to the end of June. That's why we just blank, because I don't know what the amount is going to be. It's just giving us authorization to cover those amounts. Same thing on grants, donations, insurance, property, liability. That can change the claims that we have through the end of June. We have a workers' comp claim where we have to pay a deductible. I don't know what that's going to be when I put this together in April. But generally, we hand this out. I give this in mid-April for council to have that second reading, and then we look at it third reading. This is what council has asked for in the past, so we're kind of doing it every year this way. I'll allow changes in any way we like to see it.
Well, I think what this actually is doing, it's cleaning up the amendments that we do during the course. We've voted on these things, and rather than have a ordinance amendment come out every time we vote it, we have a kind of a cleanup at the end of the year that says, okay, we authorize the spending of this out of this fund or that fund. At the end, the budget has to balance all out. And that's where we have an amendment that cleans all this stuff up. And we'll probably, and this will get updated at the very end of the year for the exact numbers of someone changing insurance, something like that, because one of the reasons we get such a high rating on our accounting and win all the awards is because of the detail that we go through to make sure that it is right. When we vote on something to say, hey, like this money we just voted today to take that money out of the fund balance, that's going to be part of the amendment. It's going to come up here as this thing reads a third time, because it's got to make perfect numerical sense.
It's
And
actually getting 4 votes instead of just 3 on the budget amendment, because it got the vote to do it to begin with.
right, and so this is one of the reasons we're so fortunate to have someone like, you know, our financial, my name is, I'm sorry, it's late. But anyway, this is kind of the process that cleans up the year. And that's kind of what this is, and having a list of, yeah, we did vote on this, and we did talk about this, and we did. This is a cleanup measure. This isn't a throw at the end of the year, sneak something in, Ralph.
Several years ago, council asked us to put the council meeting when they voted on it, so that's why that was talked.
That's right.
Probably 6, 7 years ago. And then the expenditures, we tried to put a guess what we can, and it's on there, attorney fees for MRR. We don't really know when we put the budget together how much that is going to be, but obviously we have to pay those fees. So I'll try to come up with an estimate for that. A lot of times throughout the year, you have this case we're passing stuff with the fire service. We're changing the boards and everything, along with economic development. When y'all discuss that, we get additional fees for that. We don't know what it's going to be when we put the budget together. So I'm trying to get an estimate out there close to the end of the year what it's going to be.
Yep.
EMS overtime, I think the administrator talked about that. The council during the budget work session. Solid waste open extra day, y'all put it out back in August. So I put the day out there, the litter pickup. Y'all just mentioned that, what my mom was. So those are things that come up. I think y'all approved $200,000 tonight. So technically that money needs to be amended either tonight or at third reading, so we can allocate that money. Technically, you can't do that without council. But things are constantly changing, that's why we wait till the second amendment to have everything to do.
Well, I have a question. What about the revenue? So you budgeted for the revenue. How are you looking? So you budgeted, let's say, estimated $46 million. You know what your revenue estimate was for the year?
That's approximately
$46 million. How are we running revenue-wise? Do you have any idea? Are we running ahead of that?
As we talked about in the budget work session, I'm projecting revenues to be over what we budgeted for, about $1.6 million.
Okay, so it's running. Okay. And you're spending how much additional money in this?
Didn't run the totals on it, but you're probably looking at probably $750,000.
Okay, so if you had a budget amendment at the top of your column on the far right for revenue would be up 1.6 million. Your expenditures would be up about 700, and your cash position would increase by 900,000. That's the whole picture. That's what I'm looking for.
Well, we spent another 200 and something tonight.
Yeah, so it would be the expenditures would be a little higher.
The final one would be good to
know.
know. The final, here's what it is.
Well, but I
Yeah.
want to see that in all the readings.
Okay.
I do do a monthly financial report. I got to look at the last thing I did, but on our website, I do a general fund and basically have what you were talking about within the columns, and I put that on the website for anybody to look at on a monthly basis. I will then probably one or two items to work on the budget. That is on the website.
Vice Chairman Costner.
Hey, I will say, Mr. Perino, that I do appreciate it is available for the public to go look. The public doesn't always go look. Shoot, we don't always go look. But I do really like this idea. I mean, I understand what you're saying, that why we do what we do, but I like being able to look at forecast and projections of revenue versus expenses throughout the course of the year so that we can make corrections as we go as opposed to at the end.
Okay, well,
See what I'm saying?
but we got to do it at the end anyway.
Yeah, you're right. We got to do it at the end anyway.
You're just gonna, if we do it for every one of these things, then we'll have an ordinance that we'll do 3 readings on for every single one of these things every
I'm
time it
not saying
happens.
that. I'm just saying that the more information that we have versus revenue versus expenses throughout the course of the
It's
year.
part of his document to us, it show how much the revenue went up and what the bottom line, that makes
How
sense.
many amendments do you do a year that you vote on?
Generally, we just do this one.
You do one? Okay, so you have a spring amendment? Okay, oh, that's fine.
And as Mr. Weber pointed out, Councilman Weimer was, it would take a lot more meetings to have.
That's fine. One is fine.
And that's why we just try to clean up and do our best to get that in there. There's some things that can change all the way up until the June, like qualified events.
And we'll have that third reading, which will have the final update
good. That's fine.
to the day of what happens.
And it is, and you've got all that information on the website.
Mr. Roper?
It is instructive, I would tell you, because certainly we want to adapt this to fit with what you want, but it is instructive. If you look back year over year at this second reading and the third reading, and you look at some of them, this is a very short list that Mr. Guarino has. There have been 2 pagers of amendments, so this is us trying to stay on budget as much as we possibly can. And, you know, we certainly thank Mr. Guarino for his help with that.
Any other discussion? I hear none. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 14 on the agenda, public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 599 to provide for the levy of taxes in Pickens County for ordinary county purposes for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022, and direct the expenditures thereof. Open us up to public hearing. Let's call for comment. Hearing none, close public comment period. Ask for a motion and a second to constitute second reading of ordinance number 599.
So moved.
Councilman Feenstra, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Whitehurst. Any discussion?
A motion to add the sheriff's office back into our budget discussions.
I have a motion to add the sheriff's office back into the budget discussions. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Seda. Any discussion on the amendment? Hearing
I would just like to confirm that in the event that we have any further difficulties getting information from the sheriff's department, that we can additionally suspend this again. We just had to revisit with another motion.
Correct. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the amendment, please signify by raising your hand. That's unanimous. All right, back to the ordinance number 599 is amended. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sada.
This is the second reading of next year's budget, not the current budget.
That's correct.
We had a very thorough first draft, which was a book. We had 3 meetings on the changes we wanted to make. What should be now in front of us are the revisions to the budget. Because we don't have a second budget or a second anything. We don't. We weren't given anything. And I got news for you. I'm not voting for that. Because what's going to happen is we're going to get a final budget thrown on our desk. Maybe the last meeting. I'm not saying that, but it could happen. And we've had a lot of discussion. We had consensus on things. I would thought that the second reading would have, I'm not saying another full budget, but surely revisions where there were changes made. So we would know this is heading in the direction that we talked about. That's my
Mr. Roper, do you have anything to add or to answer that?
The only thing that I would say is in the past, again, I hate to fall on that one, but what we've done is, and what council has preferred that we do, is wait till third reading and we have a list of budget amendments that you have all kind of reached a rough consensus around. And then the ones that are not controversial, you pass with one amendment. Then if there are those that are slightly more controversial or there's not a clear consensus, you all have debated those amendments on third reading. That's been common practice, but obviously that's subject to the council's desire.
I think the desire, and I will say, kind of agree with Councilman Seda, communication is key. And if we wait till June to get those, I think we're a little behind the 8 ball on that. I do agree. I think this council, the new council, whatever you want to call it, has been very upfront and open about the fact we want to know, we want to see, we want to touch, we want to feel. Even during this time of COVID, we want to be in it, right? So if you could, let's not wait on that. Let's go ahead and get that out.
All right.
Because we're going to have another budget work session. We haven't set the date, but we all know we're going to have at least 2 more, I'm going to say.
Right. That's right.
So I do believe we need to go ahead and see that so we can be thinking about that. Future work.
Yes, sir.
Vice Chairman Costa.
So for example, the rec funding, we did not take out a committee, which we would have made, could have made an amendment on now. I really wanted to do that, but we decided to leave it in committee. So that pushes it to the June, or to the next meeting. But I agree with you guys. I would rather, as we gain consensus and as, if we know that's what we're gonna do, this would be a great time to go ahead and eliminate that so that we're not, feel like we're cramming at the last minute, and I don't wanna do that.
And I'll come, I promise, but it's one of those, you can either end up with a bunch of red line versions, which sometimes that's not a bad thing, or you can keep it clean, which is the way we've done it in the past. I think this council likes red line versions to look at and review. Is that a fair assessment of what you were saying, Mr. Sada?
Yeah. I want to just propose an alternative, how I would change, reform the budget process. And I talked about this a little bit. In February, I would have a meeting where the council sits down with the administration. And Ralph would come forward and say, revenue next year is going to be at 5%. And we decide as a council with the administration, say, we're going to spend every dime. Okay. And then the council would come up with 3 priorities. They may say their priorities are EMS, roads, and solid waste. And the administration will say, I see the world a little different than you because I kind of manage employees. I also see this and that as a priority. So then all that gets put together in just one sheet of paper. And that's your first reading. General consensus or agreement about the direction we're going in and top priorities. Then you have your 2 or 3 budget work sessions where you actually hash some of this stuff out. And then the chairman, the head of finance, and actually the administrator work together and formulate a budget like you did the first reading. That's when you formulate that budget. Then that would be your second reading. And then your final reading would be, I don't know, maybe revisions like you're talking about at the end. Not a complete, not a full budget rewrite, because you've already done it once. And then you actually make amendments to that and make changes to that. That's kind of the route that I would go in. And one thing I think should be discussed in that first meeting in February is pay. What do we want to do about pay? Because that's such a big
There's a lot of
item.
things, but we're behind on that, and that we can do that going forward. And I
That's just
agree with
suggestion
you.
for next year.
Say I do agree with you. That's definitely I think it's a better process. But it's back to what Mr. Roper said. We've always done what we've always done. It's just a different way, and I think I agree. Councilman Whitehurst, I put you off long enough. I apologize.
No, that's all right. I think it's that we've always done it a certain way, and I like the idea because we have had traps set at the last reading before that have caused all sorts of problems in councils past. I like the idea Mr. Sada had, as we do, because we've discussed some stuff that we've agreed on.
Yeah.
As we move the budget process forward, we start bringing those amendments, because now the problem is we get to the end of May or June, and we're trying to come up with this, and it's like, now, what did we talk about 2 months ago? And what was that? Did we want to, and it gets a little, at least for me, I sometimes can't remember our finance director's name. It gets a little fuzzy, and so I think the idea that as we go into second reading, what we had discussed in the workshops, we go ahead and make those amendments. I do like that. I know it's different this year, but sometimes it's really good to have those fresh people on with some background like these 2 gentlemen have in budgets, because I confess I've fallen into what we've always done.
Any other discussion? Mr. Wilson.
So my experience, budgets large and small, fall directly in line with what Mr. State is talking about. Really, I'm going to ride the wave this year, but my preference would be something in more of the format that he's talking about. More of a standard that you would see in traditional basis where this way, how much money do you think you're going to make? What's it going to take to sell that product? And then in the end of the day, how much did we make? Can we update at the end? I don't have issues with that. But what he's talking about seems a little more sustainable to me with respect to accountability for the way we spend the money. So my expectation in going about it the way I always had this year is that maybe we kind of trim up the process a little bit and kind of follow some best practices like Mr. State was talking about.
Well, and it's actually been some refinement. I will say that the way we look at capital and do capital, we had always done it during this time, and that was just way too much. I mean, let's just be honest, that was way too much. So doing the capital in the fall, that was a big change. So I think it falls right in line with some of the changes we've made.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could, just in the hopes of being helpful, I think the appropriate time for you all to set this expectation in this calendar and this schedule and this is in the budget calendar process. You know, we set that budget calendar in the January meeting. I think that's appropriate time for y'all to say, this is the way we're gonna do it. Because I know me and my staff will do it the way you want to do it. But thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hear none.
Well, so, Mr. Sater, are you gonna make a motion to move second reading or just vote against it?
I'm actually gonna vote against it as it is. I mean, I think we could, if you want to just table it until we get that other information and those amendments, that's fine. It's just one vote. It's not gonna kill it, but I just have a principle that I don't want to vote for something that really.
I'm not opposed
kind of
to
blank
having a
page-
special called meeting at the next budget work session to.
Well, we've got 3 readings. Is it gonna kill us to table it to the May, because we still have May and June, right?
This is May meeting.
I have a motion to table second reading until the next meeting. I have a second. Second by Councilman Seda. Any discussion?
To me, anytime you're talking about spending the public's money, it's always best to err on the side of better information, and being better informed.
So in the, my discussion is in the effort to make sure that we have enough time, is it possible that we can do this at the next budget work session with a special called meeting? That's my question.
No, we should be fine, because
But
we've
it has
got
to be a
May and we've got
special called
June.
meeting. It can't
This
be
is
just
May
a work
3rd.
We're already in May.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can do a special call thing. You know, I'm like losing it tonight, man.
So, Mr.
You
Wilson.
travel all day and then you get in, your brain's just not there. I apologize.
Mr. Wilson, do you mind amending it to the, you said the next
Next meeting.
meeting, special called meeting?
Yes. He said, I said the very next meeting, you said the very next.
Very next meeting is just a
Either
budget
way,
work
you
session.
can just say the very next meeting. We've got to have it done by the end of June, one way or the other. It's not uncommon to have special call meetings for these kinds of things as the end of the budget year rocks on.
True.
So, I mean, I think by saying the next meeting, you're safe.
Okay.
And then we'll bring in those updated amendments as whatever we are on them. Okay.
All right, any discussion over the motion to table until the next meeting? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That is unanimous.
Golly, man, I'm just like completely.
All right, item number 15, consideration of resolution 2021-11 establishing guidance and procedure for the use of American Rescue Plan Act funds and matters related thereto. I ask for a motion and second to consider resolution 2021-11.
Motion.
Vice Chairman Costner, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Feenstra. Discussion. I want to first off say that we learned very quick at one of our last meetings that these funds that we're talking about here will be reached for, grabbed, requested, et cetera, by every member that learns that they're out there. I think it's important that this council comes up with a vision and direction for those funds. I think Councilman Seda, I've had great conversation with all of you, but Councilman Seda made a good point. This is a great opportunity for one-time expenditures, large purchases, et cetera, and we need to be very mindful of that. So saying that, I think it's important that we get feedback from the administration, but we have to remember that there are other overlying goals, kind of like the budget process that you were talking about starting in February. The council has a group of ideas, the administration has a group of ideas, and then you decide on a group of ideas. I think that's kind of the intent of this resolution. As long as we remember we still have a role here. Saying that, I'll open any discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Sato.
are they going to bring, so, because I read here that they're going to bring, the administration directed to return recommendations to the council during the current budget work session. So are they going to give us recommendations or options on how to spend this money, or what are we going to be getting from them?
So what I would hope that we could do as a staff is give you a series of things that we think are appropriate under the guidance you're giving us. Under the proposed language in front of you, you're giving me guidance, and for me to give to my staff, that this doesn't need to be burdening future budget years unnecessarily. This needs to be one-time expenditures. This needs to be things that will have secondary and tertiary benefits. So I think if you give this instruction as it is in the proposed resolution, and we try to get it done in this budget process. We're meeting anyway. Let's go ahead and start talking about it instead of what's frustrating you all and is frustrating my staff is we're waiting. We're waiting on guidance from the Fed, and instead we need to start planning.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman Costa.
So, Mr. Roper, to your point, they have made it very clear at our ACOG meetings and at several of the other meetings with the National Association and NACO that the federal government's guidelines, they've already given us what we're going to do. Basically, that's it. They've given us here are the things you can use it for, and go forth and defend what you do. So, I mean, I think as part of this, is as long as we stay within those, they gave very broad and vague guidelines. So I think that as long as we are ahead of it and that we're talking about how we're going to defend it is really going to set us up for success, not only for the best use of the money, where we're thinking about the secondary and tertiary impacts, but for those one-time expenditures. And this is a I hope it's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, because I would never have voted to give us all this money, but I think it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for us to do something very positive.
What is the timetable on getting these recommendations and actually raising our hands to spend this money?
So according to the guidelines from the federal government, we have to have the money allocated or basically spent by the end of 2024. I personally believe that it's really important for us to move forward with a plan now rather than go, let's just sit and wait, because all that does is give everybody, you're just going to get inundated with everybody. You're going to have 100,000 different opinions, and we've got a whole lot of information and a whole lot of data that we can take and create a plan and move forward as quickly as possible.
Okay, so you think it would dovetail with the capital plan when we're working on that?
I think it's part of that. I think it has some things we really can't talk about because it was in executive, but a lot of those things we talked about in executive with those different projects where we may be able to use the COVID relief money for those specific things.
So basically around July or August?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Mr. Roper, I just want to make sure that I understand this resolution the way I read it. It does not give you the authority to spend a dime.
Absolutely not. Nor would I seek that authority, because what we've got to do is come up with a rational, reasoned process. If we get no more guidance from Treasury and they just come and show up in 3 years and want to audit us, we need to show that we developed proposals, y'all considered them based on a rational basis, a good, clear, set out written basis, so that we can defend it. That's kind of the idea of this resolution, is we're starting to make our case now in case the government never gives us guidance going forward. But it contemplates if they do, it allows that as well. But no, I can't spend a dime.
Any other discussion or questions?
My personal feelings, and I read it, basically, I think defends a strong word. It just asks you to report how you spend the money. My feeling with 3,000 counties and 20,000 cities, I just don't think there's going to be a rigorous audit of how the money was spent. I think you're going to see on TV, probably the media will get a report of some county took a trip to Florida to examine some COVID, whatever, and that will be seen as way out of line. But I just don't think that the Treasury, or I don't think they even have an agency that's actually going to enforce it. So I think that we should really stay, I like the idea of waiting a little time to see how people spend it and see how the government responds to it. You're going to get a lot of rules empirically by what they question, what they don't question. My hunch is they're not going to question a lot because it's written very vaguely. It's very vaguely. So I like the idea of waiting until August, because by then cities and counties will probably already start spending it. It will filter through the press. And the Treasury, if they're going to respond, will do it immediately. But my hunch is they're not going to. They just don't have the resources. And when you look at the Biden administration, the idea is to put money into the economy. I mean, they're not going to be, in my opinion, not going to be thinking much about how this one's spent. They're going to be thinking about the infrastructure stimulus or the family stimulus. That's what they got their mind on, and getting that money out there. So I don't think there's going to be a really strong look at the reports that we do send them. honestly. But,
Well,
of course, we have to follow the rules. I'm just saying, I'd be surprised if they came and audited us, or we had to defend it.
I do think it's important to mention, this doesn't say anything about spending any money in a certain time frame. It also does not give Mr. Roper the authority to spend money. I have been on the other side of a Medicare audit that was a very loosely written rule, and I had to send boxes upon boxes upon boxes of documentation off and have them come in and visit, and they found nothing wrong. But I had to be through one of those audits, so I don't put anything past the federal government, I really don't. Things that you think are whatever to you and me, they take serious, and things that I wish they'd take serious, they don't, you know, so I will say that.
One of the things that concerns me is that we're such a conservative county, and the federal government is looking at everything from a very liberal viewpoint, and there could be some sort of political action there. And so we need to make sure that we do things right.
Any other discussion over this resolution? Mr. Wilson.
After weathering the last year as a small business, I would anticipate that vagueness, politicalization should be the standard that we measure everything that we document and do here. The idea that the current administration is going to get expletive together and come rolling down here and audit us as a county, I think is unlikely. But like Mr. Kinzer just said, the history of this type of administration chasing down right or conservative organizations, with tax implications, etc., is pretty richly documented. So I would say that anything that we don't need to be putting up a Ronald Reagan Observatory or something that's going to catch some attention, or a Newt Gingrich listening room. If we do something like that, then clearly we're going to attract negative attention. But nobody's going to come on with us about food and solid waste.
Agreed. As long as we're documenting well, I think we're fine. Any other discussion on resolution 2021-11? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 16, update from Upstate Alliance. Mr. Lummis, thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you for weathering the storm with us tonight.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, members of council, Mr. Administrator. Thanks for the opportunity to come before you this evening. I know we have a couple of new council members. I know y'all, the vast majority of y'all have heard about the Upstate Alliance, so I just want to give a little bit of intro information about what we do and how we try to work and help Pickens County. Again, Upstate SC Alliance, we're the regional economic development group for the upstate 10 counties of South Carolina. And we basically were formed in the year 2000, and we have done economic development and marketing throughout that entire period of time for the upstate region. And I don't think, well, you want me to keep going with that? Okay. I was just going to talk as opposed to doing the. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. So I was just going to talk as opposed to that. I was asked that this is going to be a long council meeting, that I wouldn't do the whole thing, but I like this slide, so you can certainly keep this one up here. So we have about 185 private sector members of our organization. We have the 10 counties in the upstate region and 9 cities that are represented easily as one of our cities, along with Pickens County. Clemson University is also one of our board members, so we're well represented by cities and counties, higher education institutions throughout the upstate region. We also have about 185 private sector members of our group, and our theory is that the private sector should drive economic development with public sector support. Emily DeRoberts with Duke Energy is our chairman, and she's here tonight, and y'all know her well, and she does an excellent job. Duke Energy has been with our organization since we began, and we can't do what we do without our private sector economic development partners and our public sector economic development partners. Our chief constituency, though, that we work with is our local economic developer. Ray Farley does a fantastic job. He's one of the top economic development professionals in South Carolina. He and I have been working together since 2002, Ray. Yeah, that's a long time. And I have great respect for him, and he does a wonderful job. And what we try to do to help the counties is market the region to the world. We try to go out and find new companies that will come to the upstate region and hopefully for this group to Pickens County. You know, COVID radically affected the way that we do business, but last year we had planned 33 different events, 25 outside the region, 8 inside of the region. Through February of 2020, we got 9 in, and then we had to cancel the rest of them, unfortunately. But what we generally will do is go to trade shows, events across the U.S. and across the world to try to attract companies back to our region. We also help our local economic developers with research. Last year in 2020, we did 139 requests from our local economic developers, and I think we did about 138 of those for Ray. I'm just kidding, Ray. No, I'm just teasing. No, Ray does not abuse the privilege. I'm just teasing. I was trying to see if everyone was awake. And in doing these research requests, basically when a company comes in and they're looking at the region, they're going to ask a lot of questions about demographics, about labor, about wages, things of that nature. So we help our 10 counties and 9 cities with that kind of information so they can put together information to send back to companies. We also, one of the things that I think we did a pretty good job with in 2020 was to bring our local economic developers at the cities and counties together to talk about issues when COVID hit. You know, in March of last year, we really didn't know what was going to happen with economic development, with our economy, if we were going to, you know, really weather the storm well or not. So we got our local economic developers together. They worked with each other on plans for helping existing industry and for trying to move forward with recruiting new industry after COVID was over. And I think we had a lot of good successes with that. Another thing that we do a lot of in our organization is advocacy on economic development issues. This year, one of our big bills has been on the COVID liability bill that just passed and was signed by the governor. A lot of our businesses and local economic developers really got behind that. Another issue has been the port funding for expanding our port, which is going through the State House right now. The port, about 52% of all the port traffic comes out of the upstate, and it's a very important asset to us. A lot of what we do is in regard to trying to recruit global business. We have about 545 international companies in the upstate, and that a lot of those global businesses really drive our economy throughout the region, BMW, Michelin, and many others, many in Pickens County. So we work with international companies. We work with consul general's offices and chambers of commerce throughout the world to try to expose our region so more international business will look at us. Another thing we do is we connect with site consultants, which are groups that work directly with companies. So if you have all the companies in the world, but if you know 100 site consultants in the United States that you can talk to, you can really narrow down your focus. And we have really good relationships with those site consultants. I go and talk to them, our staff does, but also we bring those groups to the upstate to meet with Ray and our team of local developers. During COVID, we've learned to use Zoom pretty well, and we've brought together a number of those site consultants on Zoom to meet with our local economic developers. So one thing I did want to talk about, why are regions important? You know, there are 8 regional economic development groups in the state of South Carolina. We have the largest population and largest number of counties. The reason why we've come together is in economic development, basically regions that have 1 million or more people in them are economic powerhouses in regard to workforce. So if you can sell yourselves as one of these larger regions together, you can have more success. And we came together 20 years ago so we could market ourselves as a region. I did want to talk a little bit about 2 things that a lot of companies and our site consultants and corporate decision makers talk about all the time. The first thing is workforce. The most important thing that we can do is to have a workforce in a community to bring companies here together to be successful. Pickens County's done an excellent job with the Career Center, with Ray's office, bringing companies together, and we've had a lot of success in that. The Upstate Alliance has come up with something called Move Up, which is a talent attraction initiative. More recently, we've come up with Skill Up, which is basically a way that we connect the unemployed and underemployed with job opportunities within the region to try to get them connected with the technical colleges so they can go back to work. So we're working on a regional level to increase workforce development. The second thing I think is so important for communities to have is to have product, is to have spec buildings, industrial parks, industrial buildings that are available. That's the only way you're going to get companies to look at your community. Basically, having your infrastructure and your product development is how you're going to attract companies. If companies are looking at communities, they do it on the internet now. They do it in a high-tech way, and if you don't have something to offer them, they're not going to look at your community. And I think that's going to be really important for our whole region moving forward. I think Pickens County has incredible assets with having Clemson University here, with having the quality of life. As one of the council members mentioned earlier, we're in between Atlanta and Charlotte. We're going to be one of the fastest growing areas in the country over the next 10 to 15 years. And I think Pickens County can really take advantage of that moving forward. Again, you'll have a really good program here. Ray does an excellent job, and I think as y'all continue to develop assets in the county, particularly in regard to spec buildings and industrial parks, you'll be able to take advantage of a lot of that growth. I want to thank the county for your support of the Upstate Alliance, and I hope you will continue to do that, and I'd ask for your support in the upcoming year's budget, and I think we can really help you a lot moving forward. I'd be glad to answer any questions that anybody might have of me at this time.
I do have a question. You made me think of something when you were talking about the underemployed population. I know that's one of the things in working with Tri-County Tech and the work that they're doing to try to work with those folks. And basically the underemployed is basically those people who have, for whatever reason, found themselves in a situation where they don't have enough education to make it to the next level. And they create programs for that. But one of the problems, and this is going to be a bizarre question, just for straight up. One of the problems we have with the state of South Carolina is there is a law that says institutes of higher education cannot have a vested interest in any spin-off business that they create, which is not true in the state of North Carolina. It's not true in the state of Georgia. That's why you've got Georgia University. They've got all the corporate headquarters located there. The Research Triangle in North Carolina, corporate headquarters are located there. On the board of directors with the South Carolina Association of Counties, and we've taken this up as all 46 counties to try to lobby to get this law changed. Is that something that you can help with?
That's not something we've looked at, but if it becomes a proposal for the legislature, we'd be glad to, get behind it and try to help you with that.
SCAC is behind it.
Okay, well, I'd be glad to talk to, Bob Lyon or whoever down there is moving it forward and talk with them about that. I know that when I was at Tri-County Tech, we had what was called enterprise campus legislation that allowed us to help with companies like with incubators and things like that. Right. But that wasn't for profitability for the schools themselves. And like Clemson has the foundation that they did, the research foundation that they can work with companies and things like that on patents and things. But what you're talking about is a little bit different. It's actually for profitability. So I'll be glad to contact them and ask how I can help.
I would appreciate your help with
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Mr. Wales?
We spend what, 60,000, 68,000? Ralph, where's Ralph?
I think it's about 60,000.
About 60,000?
Yes, sir.
The inevitable question always is, what have you done for us lately? I was kind of wondering, if you want to come up here and tell us what you've done specifically for Pickens County, as opposed to general, we're marketing that, but particular companies you brought in the last year or two that we have now in this county or stuff like that, your recruiting stuff that you were talking about.
What we do, we market the region. We market the 10-county area of the region to the world. And we don't work with the specific projects. What our focus is to go out, find the company, let them take a look at the upstate. Then once they come here, they make the decisions where they want to be. So we don't focus on sending them wherever they are. And that's just how we operate. So, I mean, we're more on the top end of the funnel to help the entire region. So when I get asked the question,
So
what have you done?
That's not
Yeah.
the way it used to be. It's changed a little bit.
Well, it has changed a little
The
bit.
way you market now.
Right. The way we market now is different than it was when I first got here. I've been in the job for about 7 years, a little over 7 years, and we work to market the region and let the companies make the decision once they've made the decision to come to the region where they want to go. And that's just going to depend on what the company wants and what they need. Now, some things that we do, I mean, I forgot to mention one thing. We help our local economic developers to travel. We give a scholarship, we call it, each year for each local developer to travel with us of $2,500 so they can travel and go to a trade show and do things like that. So we do a lot of those things down the line to assist. Now, talking about what specific company did we go and find and bring back, that's just not, that's not our method of operation.
I understand that. My question was, some of your direct recruiting brought companies into Pickens County. Not a particular company, but something where, you know, we've had this discussion before.
So
And I won't elaborate any more on it, but.
Well, so the question is, with Spectrum Reach, we have a marketing team that does lead generation. They track that. Do you track any of those leads that come in and where they land?
We track leads where they come in, and we track what we call wins as to where they locate. Pickens County has had, more than several new companies that have come in over the last few years. We don't take credit for these things. This is what I'm saying. I'm not going to say that we got company ABC, because if I say that, that's Ray's job. I'm not going to take credit for what they get that come in. So I'm not going to. That's not part of what we do.
I mean, I get that. I guess what I'm trying to do is help you in the sense of you talk all these companies in the top of the funnel, and Ray and whoever, the Ray in Anderson and the Ray in Oconee and the Ray in Greenville, they're all kind of doing this their deal, and then Ray gets, like our last one was Peabody Engineering. So, and I know for a fact from talking to Mark Peabody that he originally wanted to go to Texas, and then he wanted to go to Greenville, and then Ray persuaded him to come to Pickens County.
And like with a Peabody Engineering, I can't say, oh, we met them at so-and-so show and we got them to come here.
I'm not
That's
saying
just,
that. I'm saying by marketing the region.
right. We market the region, we provide all this data, we provide all this information that we get through our resources, through our investors and things. And Ray will use that, and if they come to Pickens County, I'm not taking credit for getting them here, but maybe we had a little part of it.
But you don't know what that part really is, because you don't track it.
We track wins that come in to the region, but I cannot sit here and tell you.
They picked up a piece of your marketing material.
Yeah,
and
I
saw
don't
it,
know
and that's
that.
what-
We have 500,000 people that look at our website every year, so that's very difficult. And I'm not going to take credit for any company that lands in any county, because that's the local developer that gets the credit.
Answered my question.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I have a question for Mr. Farley. The way these fee and lieu agreements work is,
Mr. Soto, we're not talking fee and lieu, we're talking upstate alone.
I know, but usually you have to give these people incentives, okay? And what I want to know is, we've given out about 25 fee and lieu agreements, and in return, they've promised jobs and investment. We give them a tax cut, which lowers their assessed ratio from 10.5 to 6. Have you ever looked back at how much investment they've actually made and the jobs they've created since we've had those agreements? If you can get me a report on that, I'd like to see it.
I believe we actually clawed back some of that from some.
We do get a
When I first got here, we clawed back.
We saw something like that. But did we see the employment change and the investment? Yeah,
If you'd work on that, that'd be great.
The second thing is, I want to follow up on Trey's point. We pay $61,000 a year. You've been doing this for how many years now for us?
Y'all have been part of the organization for about 15 of the 20 years.
We rejoined in
16.
4 years of
17, yeah.
$244,000, and you really can't talk about anything specifically you've done for us. I'll be honest, really. I
I understand. We do a lot of things for the county. in regard to, right.
Real specific. Somebody comes here and settles here, they create jobs, they create an establishment.
Right.
You can't put your hands on any of those? The answer is no. Sounds like it's no. Okay, I'm gonna be frank with you. We've got so many things we could spend that $240,000 on. We got ambulances, we got trucks that wheels coming over. We've got to get a return on the money that we spend. And you've been asked 3 or 4 times about
The return is not in me sitting here saying what company came in and what they did and how many jobs they created. We are your marketing organization to the world. Y'all don't do marketing and economic development for the most part. So, I mean, the marketing that we do, we spend a lot of money marketing all 10 of our counties, Pickens being one of them. So if you want to, get specifics on what you get back, that's not how marketing really works. How much, if we get 10 site consultants in that can learn about Pickens County, or we go on trips and meet with 20 companies that one of those may end up coming to Pickens County. The economic development process isn't as cut and dried as that. They may learn about Pickens County 5 years ago through our website, and then they might come. We can't take credit for that. We don't know if our effort specifically got them there, so.
Mr. Wilson.
For me, because we have lots of folks that are still in the community that prompted a previous iteration of the county council to discontinue working with you folks. I respect the idea of marketing and wholly understand the process of sales, etc., particularly for property development and whatnot. But it's difficult to go back to folks and say, no, we need to be part of them. I hope you understand this. You got to brag about yourself, or nobody's going to brag about you. I'm not asking you to make anything up or to claim that you made the win when it was Ray, or clearly it's a team effort. But I think that just other than the things that you do, is, running on a treadmill is certainly work. What has it been that's an example of the value proposition or the return on investment for the 60? Because we know, for $60,000
Okay,
bucks.
I'll start with one thing.
Okay,
Yeah, no, that's okay.
If we spend $60,000 on a truck driver, we know that the solid waste folks are going to start having a lot shorter lines, and we're going to have a lot less pissed off people in the community. In your case, we're just asking you to help us understand, because $60,000 in our total budget is a drop in the bucket, but to every individual out here, 60 grand is real money. And we just want to know what the value proposition is.
If Ray had the research capability of what we do for him, it would cost him at least $100,000 to buy that up front. Okay, at least. Okay, so that's just one thing. He does not have the ability to go and have connections with all these site consultants all over the world that we have, because we have the money that we get in from the public sector and the private sector to do this. We have resources on our website that local counties and cities cannot possibly have on their website, because we bring in private sector dollars to the organization. Most of our money comes from the private sector as opposed to from the public sector.
So can I ask you a point of just clarification? By our membership, does that enable the local municipalities to participate in the processes, or do they have to make their own payments?
They make their own investment.
So just those 3 data points, right? That's kind of what we're looking for. Is just what's the value proposition? Clearly, it's expensive, to market yourself on your own, particularly if you can, jump with a bunch of other folks. I appreciate you clarifying.
Mr. Costa.
So I'm going to use this analogy. Coca-Cola is worth $80 billion. They spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a month continuing to advertise, even though their brand is still worth it. We're not as popular as Coca-Cola. McDonald's spends money to advertise, even though people know what McDonald's has and what they do. And I guarantee you no one walks into a McDonald's and said, hey, I saw your ad and I'm here to buy the Big Mac. So I get it from a standpoint of marketing, and that you're marketing the region, but to Councilman Wilson's point, you do need to take some laps of success saying we were a part of your team, because we were able to market, some of these things happen. I mean, to me, advertising is advertising and marketing, people use the same. You're more like an advertising firm for the region. and because you are broadcasting out to all of these other entities that this is the place to come, and Ray, you need to be standing in line when this guy says this, you've got a site that I like.
Well, I'm gonna say, just for point, and I don't know how much involvement you had, but one of our last announcements, he made it clear he was going to Texas. He actually told me he wanted to be in Nashville, that area. Ended up in North Carolina, South Carolina, had his mind made up on Greenville. I would like to think something brought him to the region for him to actually decide to come to Pickens County. I would like to think you had some involvement. That's the kind of, if we knew that to be a fact, you got him to the area, he thought he liked Greenville, Ray did his job and got him to Pickens, but you got him to the area. I think that's what these guys want. Mr. Finster.
This might be oversimplification, but I kind of look at it like a fraternity. Ray wants to be a fraternity member, and we're paying for his ticket to go to the dances so that he can talk to the women at the dances.
Any other?
I like that analogy a lot. No, that you're on target. I mean, it's to be part of our organization. There are, as I said, 8 regional alliances. There are 46 counties in South Carolina. All 46 counties are involved in a regional alliance. So, you know, the county governments and a lot of the city governments across the state see great value in the regions, and the regions all do it differently. But basically what we're doing is we're bringing our resources together to sell regions to get people to specific counties and cities where they want to locate. And I think that's how economic development is done. It's about collaboration between public and private sector selling the area.
Mr. Chairman, this is what I would do with the money. It's an alternative. Right now, there's 114 manufacturers in this county that pay 10.5%, the maximum. They don't have fee in lieu agreement. I would think Mr. Farley, what he should do is get out there and approach each one of them and say, we will cut your tax rate from 10.5% to 6% in return for this contract number of investment and jobs. And you would do that under the fee in lieu agreement. And once you spend the $61,000 in these deals, you stop. This would give us direct investment, direct jobs, and it would engage Alliance Pickens directly with the existing, manufacturers.
Well, I think that you're missing the point of Upstate Alliance. It's not
I am missing the point.
You are, Mr. Sada, but we're not actually having budget discussion here. This is just an update from Upstate Alliance.
That's what I would do with the $61,000. That would generate something that you could put your hands on.
I don't know that you can legally do that because there has to be an investment amount in order to get the fee in lieu.
That's what I mean.
It has to be $2.5 million, and I don't think that some of these industries have the ability to go pull out of their pocket. You're going to ask these companies to spend $2.5 million in order to do this. I don't think they necessarily have that ability.
How do you know?
Why do I want to put a $2.5 million investment, require somebody to do that in order to play? To me, this is completely different.
This is a budget discussion, and we're here for an update from Mr. Lomas. Any questions for Mr. Lomas? Thank you, Mr. Lomas.
Thank you. Again, thanks for the support of the county and appreciate the opportunity to come before y'all this evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Roberts, for being here as well.
Thanks for getting my power on.
In both roles. How about that? In both roles. All right, item number 17 on the agenda is the consent agenda.
No, you missed one.
I missed one.
16.1.
Guys, I tried to jump ahead. 16.1, it's going to be first reading and title only of ordinance number 533, which will be the title of the ordinance.
Huh?
Okay, no, I apologize.
No, not 533. It's the
16.1 is the animal.
Alcohol.
Alcohol. Okay.
I thought about 16 was animals and then.
It was. I mentioned that.
I didn't add that. I added that to the first reading title only to go to the consent agenda. That's for the consent agenda. The ordinance 533.
You're right. 16.1.
16.1 was so that we could talk about
property.
Yeah.
Discussion. Mr. Wilson, you made the motion.
I'd like to make the motion, the representative from Batesville area. I cannot, for the life of me, I was a lay leader of the church out there for a long time, and I cannot for the life of me think of any cultural or social reason why we wouldn't allow alcohol to use at that facility when they're, I mean, you can drive 5 minutes and find a whole number of places folks consume alcohol. I don't think it degrades the morality or the social or cultural value of the community in any way. I would say that for the reasons that was promoted to us tonight to do this facility in Davisville, the folks who are going to go are going to want to go, the folks who are not going to want to go are not going to go, and it adds an opportunity for folks to bring value to that organization. The school would have been closed and shut down, and the community had to come together in a lot of different ways to develop funding opportunities for it. The idea that you're going to do an arts program up there for that particular area of the community is really welcome to me. I would just say that when we do rec funding, you're going to be submitting paperwork for alternative funding to help you with capital investments associated with your activity, not just rely on fundraisers. I would ask that everybody support it. The provisions that the staff have put together certainly wrap their arms around doing something like this in a very wholesome and respectful way. And I do completely understand that the folks that I represent have a very socially conservative viewpoint of the world, and we're not going to welcome hooliganism and bike weeks and whatnot to our neighborhood. But in this particular case, based on what you told us, and based on my understanding of the different folks that are buying into your organization, there happen to be some of what you're doing, there have to be some of those moral and teetotal folks that I've met, and I've not heard a single complaint about what you're trying to do. So I would just say that's the standard we have to hold every organization who wants to hold an event on federal property. If you want to hold a wedding, tell the hooligans to stay home. But then the sheriff has the ability at any point to pull the plug on the permit during the event, which I think is a very empowering thing to hold against them. So I would ask folks to, everybody here in this is a very conservative community. I have nothing but good positive things about the reason why we should do this, which is not only rural, majority religious, and lots of denominational variation, and it's been very welcoming. And this is a community that stood up and raised hell when they were going to put white liquor cells in a little building in the corner there with the rock front. Nobody wanted it. Every preacher stood up. I was the business, the local business association president at the time, and my phone rang off the hook about not allowing those folks to co-opt what they perceived as the cultural integrity of our community as people that might at some point maybe possibly thought that it was okay to make white liquor and sell it for cash flow in support of our families. They didn't want people to take that and make it into t-shirts to degrade what this happens to be a natural fact of our heritage. Those folks have not been raising opinion. Those folks have not shown me any problems with this particular issue. And I would say that most folks will find that welcome at the pack. Because we can certainly drink next door in the parking lot right behind Meals on Wheels, and you don't have to drive very far down the road to get a big margarita. I think that it will serve the community well, despite it being something that's closer to sensitivities for a lot of us. Whether or not I'm going to participate is one thing, but giving folks the right to do it. So
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Wires?
What would be the procedure we would do, Mr. Roper, on this? If we wanted to do this, what would be the process that we do? This is a policy, they've made this come up here.
They provided this at our request from the last work session.
So what is the procedure of making this happen?
What this would be is a policy statement of council, just by resolution, one vote, that you say, staff, you can in limited circumstances permit these sorts of things. It would not throw the door wide open to alcohol on all county property. That's not it.
So we can make a resolution to adopt the policy of alcohol consumption on county property pursuant the rules that we have in front of us.
That's correct. That's correct.
To be administered by staff.
That's correct.
Does that sound, can I make that motion?
Motion on the resolution? I'll second it, but then I've got to.
Yeah. So at least it's on the table what we're going to do.
And a second to pass the resolution allowing alcohol in county facilities. Vice Chairman Costner.
So in order for us to do this across the county, it would take a referendum, which Pat Mulkey was asking about, I believe. This is a permitting process. And by the way,
he was talking about Sunday alcohol.
Yeah, he was
sales,
talking about
which is
something
not
completely
what
different.
this is.
By the way, love what you guys are doing. This is going to be, I can't wait to come. That's one of the coolest things I've heard of, and I know that former Councilman Hudson has called me about it, and Councilman Wilson was talking about it, and I just love it. So I'm looking forward to attending either way. Yeah, I'm coming. But to your point, Mr. Wilson, I do like what you said. I've never heard hooliganism used at county council, but that's cool.
Check that one off. Okay.
Yeah, check that off. Word.
For the record, we're probably gonna have close to $500,000 worth of artwork in there. I don't want.
You don't want hooliganism either. Yeah, thank you.
That's the last thing I want.
But to the points of the things that we heard tonight, this will help my district with the Performing Arts Center and specific limited events. I love the wording in this because you've got specific limitations, not only on the ability to do it, who can do it, but how many times they can do it. So it is limited that way. And I can see to Hagan Mills' point that it's going to help that area up there too. So I will support it.
Any other discussion on the resolution?
In the 5th bullet point there, the last sentence says, if an organization has an event series, that series can be considered one event for the purposes of this policy. I'm just wondering if people are going to try to overuse this by saying they have one event that's a week long and then 11 more months they have week-long events.
So I'm assuming that this and assumptions get you in trouble. Could you put that on the application to begin with? And that's how you would address that. So like a weekly Friday night concert series would be considered a concert series, which may only be 6 weeks. That only counts as one occurrence.
The idea is if somebody, and I'm going to use the Clemson Music Festival where they have 4 or 5 events.
Right.
And if they wanted to permit them as one, then you're giving staff permission to consider that.
That makes sense.
Other discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Say.
I got a different point of view. I do understand that, that it's difficult to draw people out to venues, and they have to, aftermath of COVID. I understand that people have other venue choices. I understand that it adds flavor to events. But I think it actually lowers the standard and the quality of the product that we're offering. And I think it puts a dent in the family-friendly venues that we operate. The image to market. It's my opinion. And I wonder what's going to be next. My feeling is, in the long run, we're in a moral, social, and cultural decline all over the country. I know where it's heading. It's going to get worse. I just don't want to contribute to it even that much. So I'm going to vote no.
Any other discussion or question on the resolution? All right, so I have a motion that we adopt the resolution permitting alcohol sales on county facilities with a permitting process. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed? 4 to it passes. Now, item number 17, which would be the consent agenda. You got that, Megan?
Wasn't there an animal ordinance thing that
There
we
it is.
did?
It's on the consent agenda, is what Roy said he wanted. It was 16.2, ordinance 533. Okay. That's also on the consent agenda. All right.
So you should read those.
So item 17, on the consent agenda, we have the committee of the whole, results of employee survey, overriding Parks and Rec plan, and council rules, council communication.
Ordinance 533.
Ordinance 533, first reading in title only, and committee consideration of resolution 2021-12 proclaiming the week of May 16th, 2020, May 16th through 22nd as Emergency Medical Services Week. Consideration of a resolution 2021-13 proclaiming Peace Officers Memorial Day. Consideration of Resolution 2021-14 to recognize May 16th through 23rd as National Public Workers Week. Consideration of Resolution 2021-15 recognizing May 2021 as Mental Health Month in Pickens County. Consideration of Resolution 2021-16 proclaiming the week of May 22nd to 28th as Safe Voting Week. Consideration of Resolution 2021-17 recognizing May 2021 as Nurses Month in Pickens County. Consideration of Resolution 2021-18 recognizing May 3rd through 7th as Teacher Appreciation Week. I ask for a motion and a second that we approve the consent agenda items as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Feemster. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman Wilson. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That is unanimous. That is all I have on our agenda for tonight. Motion to adjourn by Councilman Wilson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Costner. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hands. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here tonight.
I think you set a record. I don't think I've ever been to a county council meeting in executive session.
And still stayed till almost 9:30.